provision of Standing Order 28 the calendar of the Assembly, this House resolves to suspend the morning sitting on Wednesday, 7th June 2023 at 9:30. And a number of bills have been lined up for first reading, such as the Regional Development Authorities Bill, National Assembly Bill number 7 of 2023. The principal object of this bill is to consolidate the laws relating to regional development and to provide for the establishment, powers and functions of the 6 existing regional development bodies. The bill standardizes the functions of regional development authorities subject to the unique areas of operation of each regional development authority. It further standardizes the membership of the boards of each regional development authority to 11 members in line with the best practices in corporate governance. Another bill that has been lined up for debate for the first reading this afternoon is the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill. The principal object of this bill is to amend the Public Finance Management Act of number 18 of 2012 to operationalize the public debt and borrowing with regard to framework for monitoring the level of public debt, to align it with the provision of Article 214, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution, which defines public debt to mean all financial obligations attendant to loans raised or guaranteed and securities issued or guaranteed by the national government. Another bill that has been lined up for first reading this afternoon is the Conflict of Interest Bill. The principal object of this bill is to provide for the management of conflict of interest in the discharge of official duties. Part 1 of the bill provides for the preliminary matters, including the application of the bill and interpretation. Part 2 provides for the administration of the Act and vests the administration of the Act on the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. It sets out the functions and powers of the Commission in relation to the management of conflict of interest. There are other parts such as Part 3, Part 4, Part 5, which provides for the lodging of complaints and conduct of investigations, among others. The privatization bill has also been lined up for the first reading this afternoon. The principal object of this bill is to provide a revised regulatory framework for the privatization of public entities with a view to improving the efficiency and competitiveness of Kenya's productive resources. The bill provides, among others, the preliminary matters, including the short title and interpretation of terms used in the bill. It further sets out the transactions to which the Act shall not apply, the guiding principles of the Act, and the purpose of undertaking privatization. Part 2, which contains Clause 7 to 17, provides for the coordination and oversight of privatization matters. It outlines the functions of the Cabinet Secretary, provides for the establishment, functions and administration of the Privatization Authority, and the appointment and functions of the Managing Director, the Corporation Secretary, and the staff of the authority. If you're just joining us, the business of the National Assembly is about to begin. On your screen, there is some activity which signals the arrival of the maize, followed by the presiding speaker. And all this is brought to you courtesy of the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Moses Wetangula, stepped into the chambers. This broadcast is also available on YouTube, courtesy of the Parliament of Kenya YouTube channel. You can watch this broadcast on the go. Now, I will hand you over for this live broadcast of the National Assembly proceedings. My name is Edward Kabasa. Enjoy your viewing.
Waheshimiwa, na tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako umetiwa nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala wa haki wa wanadamu, twakusihi utazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao umeridhika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri yetu. Twakuomba uteremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, na tujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao tumesikabidhi mkononi mwetu. Amen. We have quorum to transact business. Our clerk.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable Kwame, take your seat, the nearest. Thank you. Honorable members of short communication. Honorable members, I wish to welcome you back to the House from the long recess. I note that the recess turned out to be a working break for most committees, given the intense time that had to be invested in the consideration of budget estimates for the financial year 2023-24, public participation for the Finance Bill 2023 and other bills, the vetting of nominees proposed for appointment to various state offices, and other priority matters that were referred to committees before and during the ended recess. Honorable members, nonetheless, it's my sincere hope that you manage to spend some valuable time with your families and constituents and are now rejuvenated to embark on transacting business during this part of the session. Honorable members, as I welcome you back, allow me to emphasize the need for the House to settle down as soon as now, given the volume of business with statutory timelines either currently before the House or expected to be brought before the House. Honorable members, some of the key business that will remain top priority in this month of June 2023 include the consideration of special motions for approval of proposed appointments of various persons to Judicial Service Commission, the Central Bank of Kenya, the National Intelligence Service, and other bodies. All budget-related business is also priority, including the consideration of budget estimates for financial year 2023-24, and the attendant committee of supply for the same. Consideration of the subsequent appropriation bill 2023, the finance bill 2023, the count allocation of revenue bill 2023, and the current government's additional allocation of revenue bill 2023, among other priority business. Members, take seats. The nearest seats. Take the nearest seat, Yusuf. Members, the nearest seats are not normally the seats you occupy every day. Honorable members, the 2010 constitutional dispensation shifted the budget-making responsibility from the executive to the National Assembly. Nevertheless, the tradition where the cabinet secretary responsible for finance to publicly pronounce the budget highlights and revenue-raising measures to the nation from the National Assembly chamber remains an essential ceremonial event in the budget cycle of the East African Community Partner States. In this regard, it is hereby notified that in keeping with the requirements of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 and the Standing Order 244C, the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury will make the annual pronouncement of the budget highlights and revenue-raising measures for the national government for the year 2023-2024 on Thursday, 15th June 2023 in the National Assembly chamber. Further, honorable members, the other key event during this part of the session is the National Prayer Breakfast. As you may already be aware, the date for the 20th National Prayer Breakfast was postponed to tomorrow, Wednesday, 7th June 2023. The event will take place at the usual venue, the Safari Park Hotel, starting at exactly 7:30 a.m. All guests are asked to be seated by 7 a.m. Honorable members, on the eve of the National Prayer Breakfast, as is in the tradition, the national conversation on topical issues affecting the country has been organized. The conversation commenced this afternoon and is currently underway at the Safari Park Hotel, Nairobi, and honorable members are also invited to attend if possible. It is for this reason, honorable members, that the House Business Committee has approved the moving of the motion under order number 8 in today's order paper, asking the House to suspend the morning sitting on Wednesday, June 7th, 2023. This is to avail members the opportunity to attend this important annual prayer event. Honorable members, timely consideration of the scheduled business before the House calls for the dedication of both the leadership and the entire membership of this House. Therefore, as we embark on the performance of such important trusts bestowed on us by the people of Kenya, I urge the House to rise to the occasion just as we have ably risen before and deliver on the legislative agenda for this part of the second session. Indeed, honorable members, you will note that further to the directive of the House Business Committee, the Clerk of the National Assembly has restored the text of the motto of our Parliament in its place at the entrance of the chamber of the House. And the motto, as you can read, is for the welfare of the society and the just government of the people. When I first came here, it read for the welfare of society and for the just government of men. So the women, you have won the battle. Now it is the people and not men. Finally, honorable members, let me wish all of you success individually as members and collectively as a House throughout this part of the second session. I thank you. Next order.
Order number 3, messages.
Honorable members at the bar, take your seats. Order, honorable members. Honorable members, I have a few messages to deliver to the House. Take your seat. Honorable members, this first is a message from the President. Nomination of persons for appointment as Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya and Director General of the National Intelligence Service. Honorable members, Standing Order 42.2 relating to messages from the President provides that if a message is received from the President At a time when the House is not in session, the Speaker shall forthwith cause the message to be transmitted to every member and shall report the message to the House on the day the House next sits. Further, honorable members, you recall that on Wednesday, 15th February 2023, the House resolved that should the Speaker receive any message from the President, National Executive of the Senate during recess, the Speaker shall forthwith refer the message to the relevant committee without recalling the House. The House also resolved that whenever the Speaker invokes this resolution, the Speaker shall report to the House upon resumption. In this regard, honorable members, I wish to report to the House that during the May 2023 recess, I received 2 messages from His Excellency the President regarding nomination of persons for appointment to various state offices. In the first message, His Excellency the President conveyed his nomination of Dr. Kamau Thuge, CBS, for appointment as Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya, following the recommendation of the Public Service Commission. In doing so, His Excellency the President invoked the provisions of Article 231(1) of the Constitution, as read together with Section 13(1) of the Central Bank of Kenya Act Cap 491 and Section 3 and 5 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011. For clarity, Article 231(1) of the Constitution establishes the Central Bank of Kenya, while Section 13(1) of the CBK Act provides that there shall be a governor who shall be appointed by the President through a transparent and competitive process with the approval of the National Assembly. In this regard, honorable members, and in keeping with the House resolution, I refer the message together with the CV and the relevant documentation of the nominee to the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning to undertake the approval hearing. I also directed the clerk to transmit the message to all members of the National Assembly via my notification number 002 of 16th May 2023. Honorable members, it's expected that the committee has already commenced approval hearings and should table its report on or before tomorrow, Wednesday, 7th June 2023, to enable the House to conclude the matter within the statutory timelines. Honorable members, the second message from the President relates to the nomination of Mr. Nuruddin Haji, CBS, for appointment as Director General of the National Intelligence Service. The message conveys that pursuant to the provisions of Article 242 of the Constitution, as read together with Section 7(1) of the National Intelligence Service Act 2012 and Sections 3 and 5 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, the President nominated Mr. Nuruddin Haji, CBS, for appointment as the Director General of the National Intelligence Service. Honorable members, Article 242 of the Constitution establishes the National Intelligence Service, while Section 7(1) of the National Intelligence Service Act 2012 provides that there shall be a Director General of the Service who shall, with the approval of the National Assembly, be appointed by the President. Honorable members, Section 7(3) of the National Intelligence Service Act 2012 states that the National Assembly shall, within 14 days after it first meets, after receiving the names of the nominee, consider the suitability of the nominee and either approve or reject the nominee for appointment. Similarly, honorable members, in keeping with the House resolution, I also refer the message together with the CV and the relevant documentation of the nominee to the Departmental Committee on Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Relations for the committee to undertake the approval hearing. I also directed the clerk to transmit the message to all members of the National Assembly via my notification number 003 of 19th May 2023. The Departmental Committee on Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Relations is expected to expedite the approval process and table its report on or before Tuesday, 13th June 2023, to allow the House to consider the nominee with the prescribed statutory timelines. Honorable members, the House is accordingly guided. I thank you. Members at the bar, take your seats. I have other communications. On? Yes. I have. Yes, Honorable Mbui.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I rise on Standing Order 42, 4 on messages from the President, and Part 4 talks about messages from the CS. And Mr. Speaker, it's about a message that you read to the House here last year before we went on the last recess from the CS for Treasury, where he had indicated that he would be releasing funds for the National Government Constituency Development Fund to a tune of GAF to a tune of about 2 billion per week. And later on, Mr. Speaker, he defaulted. Later, when we were doing an induction of our new members, he also again sent you with a written communication which you delivered in Mombasa. And again, he had also promised to be releasing 2 billion per week. Mr. Speaker, the financial year is coming to an end very soon, and members have not received this money in their constituencies for development. And so, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to ask that you help us to protect the dignity of the House, because the letters came through you, you read them to us, they are unanswered, and they have not been fulfilled. And once beaten, twice shy, Mr. Speaker. And you being third in command in the country, Mr. Speaker, you need to save this House so that we don't become the laughingstock of the nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We need your guidance, please.
Honorable Mbui, let me finish with the messages, then we can come back to what you're saying. Honorable members, the second message is a message from His Excellency the President, and it's on nomination of persons for appointment to the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, SRC, and the Commission on Revenue Allocation. Honorable members, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 42, I wish to convey the following two messages from His Excellency the President regarding nomination of persons for appointment as a member of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, SRC, and chairperson of the Commission on Revenue Allocation, respectively. In the first message, honorable members, His Excellency the President conveys that in exercise of powers conferred on him by Article 232b(1) of the Constitution, as read together with Article 252c of the Constitution and the Salaries and Remuneration Commission Act 2011, the President nominates Dr. Phyllis Wambui Wagasha as a member of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. Honorable members, the second message from the President relates to the nomination of a person for appointment as a chairperson of the Commission on Revenue Allocation, CRA. The message conveys that pursuant to Article 215(2)(a) of the Constitution and Section 3 and 5 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approvals Act, Act number 33 of 2011, the President nominates CPA Mary A.C. Wanyonyi as chairperson of the Commission on Revenue Allocation. Honorable members, His Excellency the President now seeks the approval of the nominees by this House. Honorable members, Standing Order 45 provides that upon receipt of notification of a nomination for appointment, such a nomination shall stand committed to the relevant departmental committee for consideration. In this regard, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 45 and Paragraph 3 of the Standing Order 42, messages from the President, I hereby refer the messages from His Excellency the President together with the CV, the report of the selection panel, and other testimonials of the nominees. With regard to the nominee for appointment as a member of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, to the Departmental Committee on Labor, and with regard to the nominee for appointment as chairperson of the Commission on Revenue Allocation, to the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning. Honorable members, whereas the enabling statutes provide for 14 days within which the House is expected to consider such nominees, Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011 requires the National Assembly to undertake the exercise within 28 days. In this regard, honorable members, the committees are expected to immediately commence the approval process and notify the nominees and the general public of the time and place for holding the approval hearings, and thereafter, upon conclusion of the hearings, table their report by 27th June 2023 to enable the House to consider the business within the prescribed statutory timelines. The House is accordingly guided. I thank you. Members at the bar, take your seats. Take the nearest seat. I have another communication. The nearest seat. Obviously, the word nearest is strange to Honorable Kaluma. Okay. Honorable members, the next message is also from His Excellency the President, and this is nomination of persons for appointment as principal secretaries. Honorable members, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 42, I wish to convey a message from His Excellency the President regarding nomination of persons for appointment as principal secretaries. In the message, His Excellency the President conveys that in exercise of powers conferred on him by Article 132(2)(d) of the Constitution as read together with Sections 3 and 5 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, he nominates the following persons for appointment as principal secretaries. 1, Ms. Salome Wairimu Muhia Biako, State Department for Correctional Services, Minister of Interior and National Administration. 2, Ms. Anne Njokiwa Ng'ombe, State Department for Performance Management and Delivery Services, Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. Honorable members, Article 132(2)(d) of the Constitution provides that the President shall nominate and with the approval of the National Assembly appoint and may dismiss principal secretaries. In this regard, His Excellency the President now seeks the approval of the said persons by the National Assembly. Honorable members, Standing Order 45(1) requires that upon receipt of notification of nomination of appointments, such nominations shall stand committed to the relevant departmental committees for consideration. In this regard and pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 45 and paragraph 3 of Standing Order 42, messages from the President, I hereby refer the message from the President together with the certificate of presidential nominations, the CVs, and other testimonials of the nominees to the respective departmental committees as follows. In regard with Salome Wairimu Muhia Biako, the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs. With regard to Anne Njokiwa Ng'ombe, Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Security. Honorable members, Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011 requires the National Assembly to consider such nominations within 28 days. In this regard, the committees are expected to immediately commence the approval process and notify the nominees and the general public of the time and place for holding the approval hearings. Thereafter, upon conclusion of the said hearings, table their respective reports on or before Wednesday, 28th June 2023, to enable the House to consider the matter with the prescribed statutory timelines. I thank you. On the matter raised by the Honorable Mbui, I think the answer or the response should come from the majority leader because we have been working with him on this matter. And the majority leader will wield more authority on this than the chair CDA.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I'll beg your indulgence because I had engaged with the CS National Treasury last week, and he indicated in the process on both disbursements for the counties and the NGCDF, but to be able to give a more appropriate answer, I will beg you give me up to Thursday afternoon or tomorrow afternoon for me to get back to him to get the actual status.
You can bring a statement on the actual status on Thursday afternoon.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, allow me also to take this opportunity to welcome back all the members back to the House after the short but long working recess. And also thank members because many of them were very active in committees, both departmental committees and also the select committees that had the opportunity to sit. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 6th June 2023. 1, legal notice number 40 relating to the excise duty amendment regulations 2023 and the explanatory memorandum from the National Treasury and Economic Planning. 2, legal notice number 56 relating to the universities regulations 2023 and the explanatory memorandum from the Ministry of Education. 3, legal notice number 57 relating to the access to information general regulations 2023 and the explanatory memorandum from the Ministry of Information, Communication and the Digital Economy. 4, legal notice number 58 relating to the Public Finance Management National Peace Support Operations Fund regulations 2023 and the explanatory memorandum from the National Treasury and Economic Planning. 5, the draft Public Finance Management Regulations and Public Participation Engagement Report on amendments to the PFM Act 2012 and its attendant regulations. 6, report of the special groups, youth, women, and persons with disability under the 30% preference and reservation scheme for the July to December 2022 period from a Public Procurement Regulatory Authority. 7, quarterly report of the Economic and Budgetary Review for the financial year 2022-2023 from the National Treasury and Economic Planning. 8, reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 30th June 2022 and the certificates therein. A, Kenya Law Reform Commission. B, Office of the Data Protection Commissioner. C, Kipchabo Tea Factory. D, Kenya Dairy Board. E, the Orange Democratic Movement Party. F, Jubilee Party. G, Kenya Veterinary Vaccines Production Institute. H, Kenya National Library Service. I, New Kenya Cooperative Creameries Limited. J, New Kenya Planters Cooperative Union, New KPCU. K, Communications Authority of Kenya, Universal Service Fund. I, Kenya Leather Development Council. M, Agricultural Development Corporation. N, Technical and Vocational Education and Training Authority. O, Universities Fund. P, National Environment and Management Authority. Q, Kenya Medical Supplies Authority. R, KAS-FC Talanta. S, Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service. T, Kenya National Innovation Agency, Kenya. U, National Museums of Kenya. V, National Council for Persons with Disabilities. W, Kenya Film Commission. X, Assets Recovery Agency. Y, Communications Authority of Kenya. And lastly, the Western Kenya Rice Mills Limited. Honorable Speaker, I am asked by the Deputy Speaker to also give special recognition and welcome back to the House to the Honorable Junet Mohammed, who has been away for some time.
Honorable Junet, you seem to have been missed by your colleagues. The next is, honorable members, there are some papers to be laid by the Chairperson, Budget and Appropriations Committee, and Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning. We will stay them. They'll lay those papers around 4-5. They're still in their committee meetings. Chairperson, Committee on Regional Integration. Honorable Wanjiku Muhia.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, June 6th, 2023. This is the report of the Select Committee on Regional Integration on its visit to semi-autonomous institutions of the East African Community in Arusha, Tanzania from 2nd to 8th of April, 2023.
Thank you, Angie Kumuhia. Next, the chairperson, Departmental Committee on Defense, Intelligence, and Foreign Relations, Nelson Koech.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, the 6th of June, 2023, the report of the Departmental Committee on Defense, Intelligence, and Foreign Relations on its vetting of the nominee for appointment as the Director General of the National Intelligence Service.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Honorable members, the first is Chairperson, Committee on Budget and Appropriations. It will apply in the same manner as the laying of the paper. When he lays the paper, he'll also give his notice. Next, Chairperson, Committee on Regional Integration, Wanjiku Muya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I wish to give a notice of motion that this House adopted the report of the Select Committee on Regional Integration on its visit to semi-autonomous institution of the East African Community in Arusha, Tanzania, from 2nd to 8th April, laid on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 6th June, 2023.
Thank you. Next, Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Finance and Planning. He will give the notice at the time he lay the paper for the report. Next, Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Defense, Intelligence, and Foreign Relations.
This is a notice of motion, vetting of a nominee for appointment as a Director General of the National Intelligence Service, sorry. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee of Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Relations in its report on the vetting of a nominee for appointment as the Director General of the National Intelligence Service, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 6, 2023, and pursuant to Section 7, Subarticle 3B of the National Intelligence Service Act 2022, this House approves the appointment of Mr. Nordin Mohammed Haji, CBS, OGW, as the Director General of the National Intelligence Service.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Honorable members, you'll be notified that pursuant to the order I gave before we went on recess, tomorrow afternoon, the Minister for Education will be back in the chamber. I've seen a lot of questions, close to 9, that have been filed. And tomorrow, I want to encourage the House that we will be allowing the questioner an additional question as a supplementary and 2 other joyriders. Only, so that we can be able to cover the 9 questions that have been listed. And the clerk tells me there are many more flowing in. We will have the questioner, a supplementary from the questioner, and 2 joyriders, no more. Next order. We have a joyrider.
Order number 8, procedural motion, resolution to suspend a Wednesday morning sitting.
Majority Leader.
Honorable Speaker, that pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 28.4, calendar of the Assembly, this House resolves to suspend the morning sitting of Wednesday, 7th June 2023 at 9:30 a.m. The motion having been approved by the House Business Committee this morning is to allow members of the House to attend and participate in the 20th National Prayer Breakfast in the venue alluded to by the Honorable Speaker. The National Prayer Breakfast is now an annual event and organized by the Parliament of Kenya. Honorable members, as leaders, it is vital to hold and be part of such important activities. I therefore call for all members of the House to attend. Going forward, the National Prayer Breakfast will be one of the many activities in our calendar. With these few remarks, I beg to move and request the Honorable Chip Konga to second. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Order, honorable members. It was agreed in House Business Committee that the majority moves, the minority leader seconds. When did that change? Wandai? Go ahead and second. We must honor what we agreed in the House Business Committee.
You know, ordinarily, I do second motions moved by the leader majority, not his deputy, but all the same. All the same, I will proceed to second the motion.
Yes.
But with these remarks, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
Honorable Speaker, I think it has now become a tradition every year for the National Assembly, indeed the Parliament of Kenya, to host the National Prayer Breakfast. So tomorrow's National Prayer Breakfast is just one of those breakfasts that you've held over the years. It's now become a tradition. Mr. Speaker, it's an occasion when the nation needs to reflect, really, on where it's standing, the gains it has made, and perhaps what lies ahead. So it's an occasion which should be, in my view, made to remain solemn as an event for thorough reflection. Mr. Speaker, let me confess that in the past, I personally haven't had the occasion to attend the National Prayer Breakfast. But for tomorrow, I will be attending. Tomorrow's National Prayer Breakfast, I will be attending. And I encourage members from across the political divide to turn up in the large numbers and attend the National Prayer Breakfast, which is scheduled for tomorrow. Of course, I must add the rider that my own leader, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, and the entire leadership of the Azimio La Umoja One Kenya Coalition will not be in attendance. So they will be engaged in other national business or duties elsewhere. That notwithstanding, the entire Azimio leadership in the House, indeed, plus its membership, will be in attendance. And we hope that this particular National Prayer Breakfast will be of a different kind. Because in the past, we haven't lived to the spirit of the National Prayer Breakfast. Many times we have gone there, made lofty speeches, high-sounding remarks. At the end of the day, we go back to our usual selves. So let's hope that this event of tomorrow will be a different one, so that from there we can actually, for sure, embark on a renewal of the nation. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, you know we may differ in very many things, as is expected anyway in politics. But one thing that is for sure a fact is that we all need God, Mr. Speaker. We all need God. And we must continually pray to God, collectively and individually, so that this country can be rescued. You never know, Mr. Speaker. This prayer event might actually soften people's hearts and perhaps lead to the withdrawal of the offending finance bill 2023. You never know. You never know. You never know. That's why I encourage my members, please stand up in your numbers tomorrow so that we can pray together and seek God's intervention. Thank you. May God bless. I second.
Honourable members, I propose the question, which is that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 28.4, calendar of the Assembly, This House resolved to suspend the morning sitting of Wednesday, 7th June 2023 at 9:30 a.m. Majority Leader? Majority Leader wants to say something.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I rise to support that motion. And indeed, as a leader of minority in seconding, but also to tell him the deputy leader was moving on my behalf, was on a phone call behind. But Honorable Speaker, as a leader of minority, says that this prayer breakfast gives us an opportunity to come together as one people. Honorable Speaker, is our perfect opportunity to come together and reconcile ourselves first to our God. And I appreciate that the leader of minority also appreciates that the role God has in all our lives, irrespective of our political affiliation, Honorable Speaker. Two, it gives us the opportunity to also reconcile man to man. And therefore, I also look forward, Honorable Speaker, after the lofty speeches that would be at the prayer breakfast and the prayers, Honorable Speaker, because we cannot underestimate the value and the role that prayers play in our lives. Honorable Speaker, if you want to ask how powerful prayer is, ask those of us in Kenya Kwanza, we will tell you how powerful prayer is. And we never take it for granted. And just as the leader of minority has announced the presence of the entire leadership of the Azimio leadership in Parliament and the absence of the Azimio leadership outside of Parliament, let me also announce the presence in that prayer breakfast meeting of the entire leadership of the Kenya Kwanza coalition in Parliament, and also our party leaders led by none other than His Excellency the President, because he knows that it has taken prayers for him to be president today. It has taken prayers for us to enjoy the peace and tranquility that we enjoy today. And Honorable Speaker, we suffered a drought in this country that we have not experienced for a record 40 years, and we kept saying that it is the worst drought in 40 years. Honorable Speaker, you remember when the President and the Deputy President led Kenyans in a prayer meeting at Nyayo Stadium. People made fun of it. But as I say, we can tell you the power of prayers, because after those prayers, Honorable Speaker, and prayers by many Kenyans, we have experienced rains in this country, and we want to pray, Honorable Speaker, even as we meet tomorrow morning to pray, that we will not only reconcile ourselves to our God and our Maker, but also we reconcile amongst ourselves as political leaders, even as we seek to reconcile Kenyans. And how I pray that these prayers will also soften our hearts, that those who continue to incite Kenyans, those who continue to misinform and disinform Kenyans, even on the questions of the finance bill, will now reconcile themselves with their conscience and come and debate the issues touching on finance bill on the floor of this House, because this is where to engage on matters that touch on the lives and matters that are of concern to the people who have sent us here to represent them. And Honorable Speaker, with those few remarks, I take opportunity to invite all of you, including my good friend, the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, my good friend, the Honorable Raila Odinga, our former Prime Minister, to the prayer breakfast. And should they not be there, we shall pray for them. And I want to encourage Kenyans and all of us to pray for each other. Just like every day I pray for the former Prime Minister and my good friend, the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka. Every day I do, and I'll continue to pray for them, Honorable Speaker. Just as I pray for my President and my Deputy President, I pray for our leaders. As I also pray, this is why, Honorable Speaker, you see the Honorable Junet. I have been praying for the Honorable Junet to show up again in Parliament. And I am happy he's here today, Honorable Speaker. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I invite all of you to join us in the prayer breakfast tomorrow.
Honorable members, I honestly don't want to escalate debate. Junet, because of your prolonged absence in the House, I'll give you 2 minutes. After you.
Thank you.
Order. After you, I'll give the chair of the prayer breakfast committee, the co-chair. One of the co-chairs is in the Senate, and from this house is Chepkonga. Then I'll put the question. Buddy, you want to say something? Junet?
Speaker, Mr. Speaker,
2 minutes.
I stand to support the motion, Mr. Speaker, that we suspend the sitting of tomorrow morning so that we can have the prayer breakfast. Mr. Speaker, we have been having this prayer breakfast now for quite some time when I've been in this parliament. It's very important, Mr. Speaker, that people come together, pray together, reconcile together, so that the country can move forward. But Mr. Speaker, this prayer also is a very expensive one. It's not the ordinary prayer, Mr. Speaker. The kind of food they serve there, Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether it comes through prayers also, because it's not a small thing, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't know how we can get feedback whether God has accepted that prayer. It's what I've been looking for the last 5 years, Mr. Speaker. But having said, Mr. Speaker, I have heard the majority leader, he said he has prayed for me so that I can come back. Mr. Speaker, one prayer that I know has not been accepted is that one. Because he just called me, he never prayed. He told me, but there's some business in the house, business, come back to the house, we discuss. That's not a prayer, Mr. Speaker. And I know, even from his physical appearance, Mr. Speaker, he cannot qualify to pray for anyone. You know the way he appears, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, lastly, I want to say that let us not also overuse prayers. Sometimes we might burden God with small things because he has given you brain to do it. But if you continue praying on everything, Mr. Speaker, and you are a doctor, you can treat someone like Dr. Pokosi, Mr. Speaker, but you are telling me go and pray so that you get healed. That one I will not accept, Mr. Speaker. So let us, tusisumbue Mungu pia sana, let us pray for important things that we need help from God. Thank you very much.
Honorable Junet, God has never complained about
I know.
Badi, 2 minutes, then Chepkonga will close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to support this motion, although I want to announce early that I will not attend for my good reasons. I have very good reasons for not attending. I've shared with Honorable Chepkonga. I still want him to do a lot more to convince me to attend this prayer breakfast. Mr. Speaker, I hope the caliber of the preachers will be carefully chosen so that we don't end up with preachers who, after we leave Safari Park, then you see them involved in Shakahola kind of case. That would be a big shame for to this house. Let it happen to other places like the executive, but not this house inviting people with questionable characters to pray for us. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to remind Honorable Chungwa that he doesn't own God. God belongs to all of us. And by the way, he doesn't go to church quite often. I know him. I want to lecture him that God sometimes, when he finds that you are so tough-headed, he gives you very bad leaders so that you learn. You get to know that leaders can force you to pay all the money that you earn in form of taxes. Those are the kind of leaders God can give you if you become tough-headed. And I think Kenyans should now start learning that God can answer prayers by giving you very bad leaders. And you can see it, the kind of arrogance that comes from majority leader, and the kind of arrogance that comes from other officers. I know, Mr. Speaker, if I mention those officers, and you know them, you will ask me that they are not here to defend themselves. But the majority leader is here. This kind of arrogance, finance bills, Mr. Speaker.
I have no way of knowing what is on your mind.
So I can go ahead. But Mr. Speaker,
and sit down.
Mr. Speaker, Joe Biden, the president of the most...
Your time is up. Chepkonga, before you conclude, let me give Faith Kitau 1 minute, Faith.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance. Indeed, we have come this far, not because of what we have done, but because of what God has done for us. And therefore, this prayer breakfast tomorrow is quite very important. First and foremost, what we are going to do is to thank God for fighting each battle for each one of us. It wasn't easy even for us to be back here in Parliament, but God did it. And even as Kenya as a whole, we want to thank God that today we are seated here with Jeanette, who has been far away from us for a long, long time. And I want to support our majority leader here. It is because of the prayers that we've been offering that God brought you today. So we welcome all of you to our prayer breakfast tomorrow. Thank you.
Tomorrow. Thank you, Faith. Chepkonga, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. First, I want to thank you on behalf of the Committee of the National Prayer Breakfast for agreeing, Mr. Speaker, to suspend the House tomorrow so that all members can attend prayers. As you know, Mr. Speaker, the Bible reads in 1 Thessalonians 5, chapter 5, verse 16, it says, "Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus." So, Mr. Speaker, it is the will of God that we must pray. So it is an opportunity for all of us as leaders to pray. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, this National Prayer Breakfast is organized by Parliament. It's organized by Parliament, Mr. Speaker, and all members of Parliament are invited. Everybody has been given a card to attend tomorrow. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, we have a slot for the very popular choir, the parliamentary choir, Mr. Speaker, where everybody sings. And Mr. Speaker, we expect to see every member tomorrow participating in singing to the Lord and praising the Lord. So I expect to see the minority leader and the majority leader leading that choir, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, I associate myself with the many remarks that have been made. And I would like to say, Mr. Speaker, you know God is not annoyed with people who make hilarious comments. God is also a joyful God. You know, He loves people who are hilarious. We are not sad people. This is an occasion to be happy, Mr. Speaker. So the honorable Badi, my very good friend, Mr. Speaker, whatever that he has just said, God is comfortable with it, Mr. Speaker. God is not annoyed with him. So welcome tomorrow to the National.
The Bible says you'll go to heaven with the trumpets and singing. Honorable members, I now put the question that pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 28-4, calendar of the Assembly, this House resolved to suspend the morning sitting of Wednesday, 7th June 2023 at 9:30 a.m. As members of that opinion say aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable members, before we go to the next order, allow me to acknowledge the presence of the following schools in the public gallery: Ithanga Secondary School from Gatanga, Muranga; Kaiteneni Secondary School, Masinga, Machakos; Good Testimony Junior School, Embakasi East, Nairobi; Kerugoya Boys, Kirinyaga. And honorable members, in the Speaker's Gallery, we have Kagumo Girls from Kirinyaga Central, Kirinyaga. And we have Migwani Boys, Mwingi West, Kitui. Honorable CNN tells me that is his old school, and he has asked me to give him a minute to welcome the school. 1 minute. And on behalf of all your colleagues, you can welcome your school and the rest of the schools.
So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Let me take this time to welcome my former secondary school students in this parliament, and I'm proud to have interacted with them. I wish them safe journey back home and let them work hard. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And others who are here, you can see we are expecting you to be in this chamber in the future. Go and work very hard so that you can come back like us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
On behalf of the House and on my own behalf, I welcome all the schools to the House of Parliament and urge you to feel at home and learn from what you see here. Next order.
Order number 9, the Regional Development Authorities Bill, National Assembly Bill number 7 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to consolidate the laws relating to regional development, to provide for establishment, powers and functions of regional development bodies, and for connected purposes. Order number 10, the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the management and regulation of conflict of interest and for connected purposes. Order number 11, the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 16 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Public Finance Management Act and for connected purposes. Order number 12, the Food and Feed Safety Control Coordination Bill, National Assembly Bill number 21 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the coordination of the public institutions in the control of food and feed safety, to establish the Office of the Food Safety Controller, to provide for the role of county governments in food and feed safety and for connected purposes. Order number 13, the Privatization Bill, National Assembly Bill number 22 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for regulatory framework for the privatization of public entities, to establish the privatization authority and for connected purposes. Order number 14, the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, National Assembly Bill number 23 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the additional allocations to county governments for the 2023-2024 financial year, the responsibilities of national government and county governments pursuant to such allocation and for connected purposes. Order number 15, motion. Consideration of the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements for the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 26 constituencies. Resumption of debate.
Order, honorable members, before we resume the debate, Honorable Wanjiku Muya has a short statement to make. Go ahead, Wanjiku.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable members, as you are aware that Kenya is a member of East Africa.
Order, honorable members who are caucusing. The Kamkunji on my right.
And honorable members, this is very important. Yes. The Committee of Experts on the Constitutional Amendment for Political Confederation is ongoing here in Kenya and East Africa, and Parliament is expected to give your views. As such, the Office of the Clerk has mandated the Committee of Regional Integration to write a memoranda and give the views to this constitutional amendment. In that case, honorable members, we are inviting your views either through our committee or through the clerk's office so that we can enrich this constitutional amendment. For clarification, the East African is built on 4 pillars: custom union, common market, monetary union, and eventually political federation. The summit, which is the highest level of governance in East Africa, gave a directive that we have political confederation as a transition before we engage to full-fledged political federation. And in that case, the confederation requires a constitution to guide the community, and so it is so critical to have your views. Any person, any member of goodwill, we welcome you through the office of the clerk or the committee, particularly the lawyers in this house. Give us your views so that we take to Arusha a very enriched memoranda which will be considered in this constitutional amendment. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Wanjiku Muya, my record shows that on this motion on consideration of reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements of NGCDF, the Honorable Jen Kihara was on the floor and had a balance of 6 minutes. Is Jen Kihara in the house? If Jen Kihara isn't, the next will be Phyllis Bartow. I see you are top on the list. Or you are among those who just keyed in case you get a chance on any issue.
Mr. Speaker,
you are not ready for this?
No, I had been given an opportunity to present my views.
Already?
Yeah.
You are top on the, then disengage from the equipment. John Kawanjiku. It appears Kawanjiku is ill prepared for this. Then disengage. Wilberforce Oundo. Had you keyed in to speak on this? Honourable members, this system of ours, before Oundo speaks, I have asked the House Business Committee that they may have to design a better system of electronic queuing to speak, so that at the end of every order, we wipe the screen and then you key in order of your interest. Because some of you come in at 1:30, 2 o'clock, block the screen and walk away, or block the screen and you are not ready to speak. Oundo, you are ready for this?
Okay, I'm not so sure.
Oundo, yes.
I need to check.
Honorable
Speaker.
Oundo, unfortunately, you have already spoken on
Yeah,
this
that's
motion.
what I was thinking. My memory doesn't serve me wrong.
Yes.
Yes.
Samuel Atandi. Have you keyed in to speak on this? No.
Honorable Speaker, I don't want to talk on this one.
Peter Kihungi.
Yeah.
No. Donya Doris. No. Clear yourselves from the screen. Gertrude Mbeyu. Don't see her. Kibet Komingoi. Geoffrey Ruku. Geoffrey Mulanya. Amazing. Zamzam. Zamzam Chimba. not. Peter Orero of Kibra. Is not here. Robert Bukose. Give the floor to Honorable Bukose.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to contribute to this report of the Special Funds Accounts Committee on financial report, auditor's report for the financial years 2013-2014, 2014-2015, 2015-2016 for the counties of Mombasa, Kwale, Kilifi, Tana River, Taita Taveta, Lamu, about 26 constituencies. Honorable Speaker, on the report of these constituencies, which have been funded by NGCDF, there were many issues that I think it's very important, especially for the honorable members to understand. More often, you find that you have reports indicating that maybe a certain constituency is not doing well. It is not the member who is responsible for the day-to-day NGCDF financial runnings. And it is very wrong at times to blame the honorable members on some of those mismanagement in as far as constituencies are concerned. When you look at this auditor's report, the accounting officer for those constituencies are the constituency funds managers. And it's very important that every member, whenever the financial reports are tabled by the Auditor General, that the honorable members are able to look at it. And what we observed in many of these reports is that there were delays in as far as release of the funds to the constituencies. And this has tracked on up to today. Because as we speak today, Honorable Speaker, many constituencies have received less, almost all the constituencies have received less than a half of what they deserve. And Honorable Mbui raised an issue in the, when you gave your statement about reports from the head of state. And I think it is important that honorable members receive their share allocation of the CDF funds so that those projects which we had committed to do them, we are able to do it within the specified period. When you look at some of the reports in the CDF in those various constituencies, we looked at a report in Kangse. In the report from Kangse, you find that there is duplication of projects. A project which was funded by CDF has also been funded by the Equalization Fund, where you find that a dam, which was supposed to have been done by CDF, has also been allocated money from Equalization Fund. Then you wonder, how did the Equalization Fund, what is it that was done by Equalization Fund, and what is it that was done by the NGCDF? So that issue of co-funding, I think, is a big major issue that should be looked into. We also were able to look at some of the reports in some constituencies which were not able because of, you look at a constituency which is not able to expand because in some of the constituencies like Mfita, when you look at its report, Mfita is already exhausted. There are no new schools which are being built. The NGCDF is now building walls and other amenities, swimming pool, walls, doing electricity and other things. While in another constituency, there is even no funds to construct a classroom. Students are reading they are reading in a tree. One classroom is even not complete. So these are issues that there is a lot of disparities. And when we came back in the last parliament, there are some things that were done in making that CDF be done on ward levels. Yet some of the wards have a higher population than, even if you have 6 wards and somebody else has 3 wards, the population numbers within those wards are not the same. And therefore, you find that people end up with disparities in terms of even disbursement of bursaries and other services. So, Honorable Speaker, CDF or NGCDF has done tremendous things within these 26 constituencies in the coastal region that you are able to see, that you are able to feel. And therefore, I think we should be able to continue doing more audit reports, looking at what CDF has done, and really appreciating the services that the Wananchi are getting through CDF. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I want to support the report of the committee.
Order, honorable members. Order. The chair for the Finance Committee is now in the House. Allow me to interrupt the debate and allow him to table his report and give notice of motion. Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House. Today, Tuesday, the 6th of June, 2023, the report of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning on its vetting of a nominee for appointment as Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya.
Thank you. Go ahead and give the notice of motion.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give the following motion. I beg to give notice of the following motion: that taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning in its report on the vetting of a nominee for the appointment as the Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya, laid on the table of the House this Tuesday, the 6th of June, 2023, and pursuant to Section 13(1) of the Central Bank of Kenya Act, Cap 491, and Section 8(1) of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011, that this House approves the appointment of Dr. Kamau Thuge, CBS, as the Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Kimani. Kawanjiku.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I take this opportunity first to appreciate you for giving me this opportunity so that I can be able to contribute towards this motion of great importance to our constituents and to our people within the constituency. Mr. Speaker, it is true that the Auditor General has done his part, but we need to appreciate the work that is being done by the Auditor General to make sure that there is transparency and accountability in terms of these funds, so that every time that the cost, even if the work of the Member of Parliament is not to oversee the whole kitty of the CDF, but he has a very important role of making sure that he patronaged the whole issue of the CDF, Mr. Speaker. And we have seen quite a number of development in terms of infrastructure and work being done by this fund, Mr. Speaker. We have seen also serious development in terms of school infrastructure, making sure that we have modern schools and modern classrooms, whereby we are able to accommodate quite a number of students who are schooling within our constituency, increasing the number of uptake from public primary school to public secondary school, and making sure that there is 100% transition from our primary school to our secondary school, Mr. Speaker. This work cannot be done without the CDF fund. Among the many funds that we have within our republic, one of the funds that has been well utilized, Mr. Speaker, is the NGCDF fund that is oversighted by the Member of Parliament from this country, Mr. Speaker. Also, we have seen serious development, Mr. Speaker, in terms of renovations, in terms of making sure that we have given our students enough infrastructure to make sure they are comfortable even when they are schooling and even when they are doing their studies within our public primary school, Mr. Speaker. The issue of the CDF also deals with in terms of security, making sure that, Mr. Speaker, we have enough police posts, we have enough police stations, we are looking into issues to do with those developments so that also we can be able to house our police officers and our policemen and our policewomen within our constituency so that we can enhance the security system within the constituency, Mr. Speaker. The bursary also has been a very, very big issue within our republic and within our constituency. And I dare say, Mr. Speaker, I think we also need to look at, in terms of fairness, how we distribute these bursaries, Mr. Speaker, in our constituency. Sometimes we realize that we have so many members. For example, in my constituency, Keba constituency, I have 120,000 voters, Mr. Speaker. And you realize the amount of money that we get for bursaries is not enough to make sure that there is equal distribution of this bursary. Sometimes we tend to let some students go without the bursaries, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, we will recommend, and with time, we are going to bring to the floor of this House an amendment to this NGCDF Act so that we can be able to separate between the bursary and the infrastructure development of the CDF, Mr. Speaker, whereby we will make sure that any student within the Republic of Kenya can get an equal share of the bursary, whether you are in Kiambaa or whether you are in Uasin Gishu, whether you are in Wajir, the amount of bursary that each and every student gets allocated to him from the Constituency Development Fund, we make sure that all over the Republic is the equal amount of money that all the students are able to receive within the Republic, Mr. Speaker. And I therefore say that will bring this amendment and make sure that we support the bursary, make sure that we support the NGCDF so that we can separate the bursary and the infrastructure. And we make sure that even the board itself has been able to audit and to make sure that all the students within the Republic of Kenya are able to get same allocation of bursary wherever they are, so that we can make sure that there is fairness and there is equity in terms of how this NCDF is distributed. Some of us and our population, Mr. Speaker, we have a constituency like Ruiru. We have a constituency whereby you have more than 2,200 voters, Mr. Speaker. But the same amount of money you receive for the CDF from a constituency that has 25,000 voters is the same amount the person who has 120 or 250,000 voters is receiving, Mr. Speaker. And therefore it becomes very difficult in terms of how do you distribute these resources to all those members of your society. We had an incident whereby when people were coming to pick for bursaries form, we even lost a parent, Mr. Speaker, because it was on first come, first serve, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, we support the transparency and the accountability and whatever the Auditor General is doing, but we also make sure that there is equal distribution in terms of the resources, in terms of how much money we receive as a member, as a NGCDF, wherever we are, whatever the constituency, so that we can make sure that, Mr. Speaker, there is that equity and fairness in terms of the distribution. Therefore, the work the NGCDF is doing is amazing. You go to our constituencies, you'll see the boards all over that there is presence of the CDF or the money of the CDF wherever we are within our constituency. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I like to support. Thank you.
Kawanjiku, Owen Bayer.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this motion that discusses the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements for the National Government Constituencies Development Fund for 26 constituencies that are basically at the coast region for the period 2013 to 2016. Honorable Speaker, one of the things that I need to note is this is for the 11th Parliament. This report covers the 11th Parliament, and actually they are late. I just hope that the committee in charge of CDF now will be able to give us reports on time. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, I happen to have participated on this report when my friend Dr. Pokose came visiting at the coast to oversee, or to, when they were doing the audit, they were following on the audit queries. And I went around with Dr. Pokose and I saw the kind of projects that were done and the issues that were raised. Honorable Speaker, it is important to note that CDF has significantly contributed to the development of this country, and more so at the cost where this report, which this report talks about. Honorable Speaker, constituencies that for many years had not been developed have seen development because CDF is there. One of them is the Ganze constituency, which this report reports on. We have seen some level of development there because CDF has been there. The many constituencies in the coast and the coast region generally, if you look at government investment in these constituencies, you'll actually see that it is investment through CDF. And we want to commend the government, and we want to commend the NG-CDF board for the good work. Mr. Speaker, it is also worth noting, although many court cases have been, people have gone to court to challenge CDF, but there's one thing that we can never escape from, that CDF has helped communities in terms of bursaries, Mr. Speaker, in terms of development of schools, in terms of development of police stations, in terms of development of environment and youth. Today, a youth in a remote area in Ganze or in Kilifi North can have a football, can wear a football jersey because NGCDF has provided those facilities. Honorable Speaker, I would like to say that the usage of CDF is the matter of this report, how prudent the resources have been used. There are times when we worked with Honorable Pokose and we saw the shame on how members actually implemented CDF projects, where you are told that a school should have been built here, but you go there, there is no school. So I want to ask NGCDF to actually strengthen the audit component so that as NGCDF committees are given money, there is good audit to ensure that the resources are used very well. We have seen, Honorable Speaker, I will tell you, I'll tell this House that my constituency has benefited immensely from CDF. And under my stewardship of CDF, I think we have done a commendable job. We have developed schools. We have developed very good infrastructure for schools, for chiefs, secure for police stations, you know, things that can be seen tangible in terms of development. What I would like to say is to ask governors that are given resources, actually more resources, that through county governments we would like to see more development. But I want to say that, lastly, I want to say that NGCDF has seen families that would not have taken their children to school. Now those children are in school and are retained in school and are able to finish up to Form 4 and are able to actually come home and say, I have qualified, I have a qualification. Kids who have gone to university because of NGCDF. So I would like to ask those litigants, those perpetual litigants who are always running from one courtroom to the other to try to stop CDF, that they need to stop these shenanigans and allow Kenyans to experience the magic of NGCDF. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Baya. Sarah Korere.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I also want to add my voice to these audited reports of the CDF. And I want to take a particular concern, Mr. Speaker, on how these reports sometimes are released to the public, even without this House having a look at it. And Honorable Speaker, sometimes when some things are not verified, and you see a very big column in the newspaper that MPs are stealing from the CDF. And Honorable Speaker, I want to believe there is no sane MP who can steal from the CDF. And Honorable Speaker, as Honorable Bias mentioned, some of the constituencies that have been marginalized over the years have really benefited a great deal from CDF. And Honorable Speaker, I hope even in future or very soon, this House will revise the amount allocated to NGCDF. Because when you come to some of our constituencies, the only trace of development you can see is what NGCDF has done. And NGCDF is a very classical example of what devolution can do, of what devolved funds can do. So, Honorable Speaker, we really wish to reiterate that even as members are grappling this year without the release of NGCDF, I think we should even add more monies to this NGCDF. Mr. Speaker, you know marginalization is real in this country. And when you come to some of our constituencies and some of the places we come from, marginalization has even been devolved. And that is why you hear the likes of Kuria asking for their own county. Even like Laikipia North would want to have our own county. But Honorable Speaker, there is no single constituency in this country that is not benefiting from the NGCDF funds. So, Mr. Speaker, I would really want to add my voice and say we would wish to add the percentage that is being devolved to NGCDF, and I urge my colleagues to be very, very diligent on how to use that NGCDF to make sure that places like Tiati will get more schools, more children go to school, so that we don't manufacture bandits year in, year out. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Didymus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And I want to say that when you go through these reports by the Auditor General, you cannot doubt every single wording that has been put there, Mr. Speaker. And even as we all agree that NGCDF has done a very good job across this country, some of the audit queries raised, they touches on the competency of the accounting officers who actually fund account managers, Honorable Speaker. And it is very important that when the board recruits fund managers, they should be able to get very competent fund managers, because when these reports comes out and they have got very flimsy audit queries, people think that the member of parliament is to blame for all those audit queries. Yet our role is clearly stated in the law, Honorable Speaker, is to provide oversight. So as a house, we should not, and even I want to challenge the NGCDF committee, that they should also be keen to ensure that any fund manager whose accounts has been audited and that they are very flimsy audit queries raised, such people, they should be put to account, they should be trained further, so that we don't allow the very flimsy audit queries to dent the reputation of the very good impacts that NGCDF is doing. And lastly, Honorable Speaker, we are almost moving to the, we are almost at the tail end of the financial year. We kindly urge Treasury to release the pending money for NGCDF so that even new members of parliament can begin to rubber stamp their entry into political leadership by at least launching projects within their constituency, because as we speak today, Honorable Speaker, there is nothing they can write home about, and we hope that our economy will quick to improve so that the money can keep flowing and we can keep to continue paying our bursaries for our children, continue building and improving our educational infrastructure for our various schools across this country. And as I finish, Honorable Speaker, I wish that even county governments, they should borrow or live on how NGCDF is managed, so that we also don't want to hear of situations where we have pending bills, projects that were abandoned by some previous people, projects that are initiated and they have no impact to the people. With these very few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I wish to support this motion.
Karoli Omondi.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I write to add my voice, though you've surprised me a little. I thought it would take a longer time, so I'd not crystallized my thoughts.
You are nearly on the top of my
yes,
screen.
But I think the work that we do with the NGCDF is quite clear, can be seen everywhere. But so far we've had some difficulties implementing most of the projects because of the economic situation of the country. I would just like to add my voice and urge that whatever can be done as soon as possible so that we get all the funding and initiate or commence all the projects we had for this financial year, the better for everybody. I hope it will be done soon so that it doesn't become an obstacle to the business that lies ahead of us, that we all understand how important it is. In fact, I hope it is being prioritized wherever the decision makers are so that the funds would be released as soon as possible to the various constituencies. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Agnes Pareyo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to the report, to the auditor's report on NGCDF. And NGCDF is a fund that is really helping in our constituencies. Most of the work that is done in our constituencies are by using these funds from NGCDF. If it were not for these funds, some of our children could be studying under a tree. But because of the NGCDF, they are now able to have classrooms, and our people are benefiting from bursaries. And that's why I stand to support and say that NGCDF is a fund that is being seen in all our constituencies. And through you, Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask the Treasury to release these funds because we have not been able to make use of these funds. And in the report, I think some of the comments that are in the report are not from the members of parliament. And therefore, we need to have competent officers that can be able to manage these funds and do the reports at the right times and do the right things. Because we have officers who are not competent, who come to our constituencies, and sometimes they don't even know what they are doing. So I think it is important for the management to make sure that the officers that we have in our constituencies know what they are doing and are able to account for this money the way it's supposed to be done. So I stand to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Agnes. Before I give the next, I want to allow the chair of the Committee of Budget and Appropriations to table your report and give your notice of motion. I had stayed your order on your request. Are you ready? There you are.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House, Tuesday, 6th June 2023. Report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on its consideration of the estimates of revenue and expenditure for financial year 2023-2024 and the medium term, including a compendium of departmental committee reports on the estimates of revenue and expenditure for financial year 2023-2024. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Go ahead and give notice of motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on budget estimates for the national government, the judiciary, and parliament for the financial year 2023-2024, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 6th June 2023, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 221 of the Constitution, Section 39 of Public Finance Management Act 2012, and Standing Order 239. A, approves the issuance of some Kenya shillings 2,308,410,974,957 shillings from the Consolidated Fund to meet the expenditure during the year ending 30th June 2024 in respect of the votes contained in the first schedule, subject to paragraph C, Committee of Supply. B, make the non-financial resolutions as contained in the report. C, makes financial resolution as contained in the second schedule. And D, orders that the Speaker do now leave the chair to facilitate the consideration of the said budget estimates with respect to each vote and program in the Committee of Supply as contemplated under Standing Order 240, consideration of the estimates in the Committee of Supply. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. You can proceed and lay your documents. Now I'll give the floor to Lillian Sioi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance. I would also wish to put my input. I would like to say that we need to check on the procurement process, because this is one part that has really affected the NGCDF programs, because it takes time at times to identify the merchant or the contractor, and by the time the work is being awarded to this person, probably takes too long until the project overstays. And as my fellow MP said earlier, you realize that when the project takes too long, at times it might be taken over by another program. So this is one thing that we need to check on. And secondly, I also want to say that this fund has been of great help to the community. But there is one aspect that we've not been taking into consideration, because mostly we go by the number of the electorates in that region. But actually we also need to check on the level of poverty, because when it comes to infrastructure, there are areas that are more developed than others, which makes other MPs look like they're not working, because you realize that most of your parents in those schools are very poor, and the school is depending fully on NGCDF. But other schools, the parents, during their AGM, they sit down and at times they collect good amount of money and also contribute towards putting up some infrastructure, Mr. Speaker. So I would wish to say that when we are allocating, especially when it comes to bursary money, we need to allocate based on the level of poverty of an area, because these are the students that are really needy, and they need more of bursary than just some allocation for the bursary. Because at times we give them money for the bursary. For example, you might give each student 5,000, and the school fees is around 40,000. Towards end of the term, that child has been returned home because the parent is not able to raise the balance. And to me, it's like we are not even helping those ones who are purely poor and cannot afford this amount of money. So we need to do some amendments and ensure that those schools that are highly poor are given more money than other schools that are better placed. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Sioi. Catherine Omanyo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really looked into the report as well, and any areas that have audit queries, I think it's just a shame, because if there is anything that has left an impact in our regions in Kenya, it is through the NGCDF. Most of the members of parliament have improved socio-economical ways of our people through this fund, and all the people who were maybe hopeless in their lives, through this fund, they can now actually count a blessing because they could see that they can chase their dreams through bursaries. And most of the buildings that look better or in a standard way have been built by this fund. And that is why I was looking at the report and I'm like, if everybody here, like if we really want Kenya to be equal through this fund, this is one that can make regionally Kenyans to be equal. If you go to Coast or come to Western, you'll find that if it is schools, all the children across the country are being treated the same through the resources that this fund has been enabling the teachers to get, and equipment or buildings that come up. It makes a poor child or a rich child not to be detected easily because of such. So also poverty has been reduced because there are MPs who have built schools in a modern way in a very remote area that you wouldn't even expect a story building in such an area where even Google Map cannot direct you to. So I think we should up our game as the legislatures by making sure that we implement or use this fund appropriately. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, allow me to recognize the following schools. In the public gallery, Kirenga Girls from Lari, Kiambu, Holy Trinity Girls, Kapenguria, West Pokot, Karangare High School, Mbere North, Embu. In the Speaker's Gallery, St. Anne's Kiboko Girls, Kibwesi West, Makueni, Kerugoya Boys High School, Kirinyaga Central, Kirinyaga. On your behalf and on my own behalf, yes, on your behalf and on my own behalf, I want to welcome the students and their teachers to the House of Parliament. Yes, Ruku. If you want to comment on the students, 1 minute.
Students.
Yes, 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Debate.
I thank you for this opportunity to welcome the students of Karangare Secondary Schools and all the students who are in gallery from different schools for them coming to visit this very distinguished National Assembly. We want to encourage them to work hand so that they can be the leaders of tomorrow of this country, and they have a huge responsibility, and to assure them that the government of the day is very much committed in investing in education so that they can have a bright future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Innocent Mugabe.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I would want also to contribute to the report that has been tabled on the audit of CDF funds. One thing I would like to say is that as members, we should really appreciate and take the audit issues seriously because it is through these audit checks that we'll be able to realize areas of improvement. It is through these audit checks that we'll be able to know best practices that have been used in other places and that can be replicated in other areas. And I would like also to challenge, especially the NGCDF board, that after such reports, we need to have forums to share so that members can also learn on innovative ideas and methodologies that are used in certain areas to get best results. So audit checks are very important, and they should not be used for witch hunt, but should be used to help improve on our ways of delivering to the people. On this same matter of NGCDF, Honorable Speaker, we've seen a lot of people have talked about very positive issues or very positive aspects on this NGCDF fund. Madam Speaker, these funds have clearly displayed that it is one of the best systems or structures in implementing projects at the grassroots level. And it has shown, or we've witnessed, that is actually working. And if something is working and is good and is working for the better of the people of this country, the only best thing to do on it is to improve it. And we've had a number of suggestions on how to improve this particular fund because its effect is felt at the very grassroots level. And on that, I also want to add my voice in it, that this is one of the funds that should be expanded. We need to increase the percentage of funds that goes to NGCDF because it has been proved beyond any reasonable doubt that actually these funds work and these funds work for the people. When you compare NGCDF projects with even national government projects or county government projects, you will find that there's a lot of efficacy on implementation of NGCDF projects compared to others. There's better utilization of public funds through NGCDF as compared to others. So, Madam Speaker, I want to add my voice that this is one fund that should be enhanced. This is one fund that we need to use the system and the structure that is there, capacity build the board, capacity build the fund managers, and help to devolve most of these funds, most of the government funds or government projects through NGCDF. On another level, if we do this right, through this system and structures of constituency level, we'll find that members of parliament will have a lot of autonomy in terms of decision making, in terms of representing their people, because they will have proper distribution of development across the country. We will not need to be coerced to make sometimes unpopular decisions in order to get development projects because we already have those projects at the grassroots. And we will have now proper representation of our people. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I beg to support. Thank you.
The Honorable Member for Mombasa County, Honorable Zamzam Chimba.
Asante sana, Madam Speaker. Naomba niweze kuunga mkono mjadala huu wa leo na niweze kusema NGCDF ni kwa kweli imesaidia wananchi wetu hasa kwenye kujengewa mashule, kuangaliwa barabara za ndani na mambo mengi sana. Na mimi ningependa kusema hivi. Pengine leo tutazungumzia NGCDF peke yake, lakini Madam Speaker, wewe ukiwa pale kwenye kiti uko kwenye ngafu na pia tuweze kusukuma na mambo yetu pia ya ngafu. Mgao huu wa CDF umeweza kusaidia sehemu kubwa sana, na kile ambacho naweza kusema ni kuwa nimezunguka hasa katika kaunti yangu ya Mombasa, na ningependa kusema pengine wana upungufu mahali, manake utapata hata hizi skuli wamejenga na kuna zingine hazina hata zile perimeter wall. Kwa hiyo mimi ningependa kusema hivi, msaada umetokea mkubwa sana katika NGCDF, lakini waweze kuangalia ule mkono kama waweza ukavuka kidogo ili waweze kusaidika zaidi. Hata kama mtu anajenga skuli, basi aweke na ile perimeter wall. Kwa mfano nimekuwa katika Jomvu High School, Jomvu Secondary, na ni skuli kubwa, lakini wale ni watoto wa kike pale hawana hata ile fence, perimeter wall hakuna, na ni boarding school. Kwa hiyo mimi napenda kusema hivi, pengine na nilivyokuwa pale mwalimu mkuu aliniambia kuwa kulikuwa na lalama kuwa pesa hazikuweza kutosha, zimetosha kidogo kidogo ya kujenga zile dormitories na skuli kidogo, laboratory pia wanahitaji zingine, na wamelia sana kuwa wao wako katika hali hatari ya kuweza kuingiliwa wakati wowote. Kwa hiyo mimi na support mjadala huu, ila nasema hawa wabunge nao pia waongezewe. Na sisi kina mama wangafu pia, maana yake huwa ikitajwa NGCDF wabunge mimi na waombeni. Sisi tukiwapigia upato hapa, na nyinyi pia muangalie kina mama wa kaunti 47 kuwa pia mgao wetu unakuja kwa wakati. Manake mpaka sasa na sisi hatujapata mgao na hali ziko tata kule mashinani. Kuna mambo ambayo tunataka kufanya kama kina mama wa kaunti 47, lakini mgao haujakuja licha ya kuwa mgao wenyewe ni mdogo sana. Kwa hiyo na support mjadala huu. Asante sana, Madam Speaker.
Member for Gilgil, Honorable Martha Wangari.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise to support this report and agree with members that NGCDF is one of the models that actually is held not only in the country, but across the globe and the continent, Madam Speaker. Just recently, we were hosting the Zambia delegation led by the Speaker, Madam Speaker, and the one thing that they were keen to learn and implement in their country was that they wanted to ensure they have a model like CDF, and they are trying to craft that law guided by the NGCDF Act because it is a trailblazer in this area, Madam Speaker. I want to join my colleagues to note that the issues that are seen in the constituencies and in the counties, Madam Speaker, it is mostly NGCDF work that is even more visible than what is even being done by the counties, Madam Speaker. If you compare the over 380 billion that goes to the counties, the output it gets, and the just below 50 billion that goes to the 290 constituencies and the work it has done, Madam Speaker, you will see that this fund is actually what is needed in the grassroots and in our constituencies, Madam Speaker. I want to note, Madam Speaker, like for the new constituencies, like Gilgil, which was a part of Naivasha a while back, Madam Speaker, we never used to see the development and the growth we are able to see today. Right now, that constituency can boast of a technical training institute, courtesy of CDF, can boast of many schools being centers of excellence, many students being educated through the bursaries, many chiefs, many police officers being housed because of the CDF. So, Madam Speaker, the issue and the need for CDF cannot be gainsaid, Madam Speaker. But I also want to note that we also have to be very keen from the recruitment of all the accounting officers. We also have to be keen in the recruitment of the audit officers, Madam Speaker, so that it does not become witch hunt. Because we will see a fund manager dealing with internal auditors this week. Next week, they have external auditors. The other week, they have Kenao. So we also must be brave enough to root out the corrupt audit officers in that system, Madam Speaker, so that it is not used as a witch hunt for members of parliament. It is not used as a political tool to actually embarrass any county, but to get output and to get that streamlined, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to end it there and say that we are pushing to get these CDF monies released, but we also must look at the law to ensure that the 5% that have been proposed can be achieved. And more importantly, Madam Speaker, we must get to a level, and this maybe the Senate or ourselves can do, Madam Speaker, to streamline the counties and the way they learn, to get a formula for the county funding that we take to the counties, so that we are able to know what percentage goes to personnel and what percentage goes to development. Because what is happening right now is that under the PFM Act, it stipulates that not more than 30% should go to, not more than 70% should go to salaries and personnel. But what is really happening is that many counties are not able to allocate even 30% of the money to development, Madam Speaker. We must get to a point where we will put a certain percentage to go to health, a certain percentage to go to roads, a certain percentage to go to water, and cover all the devolved functions the same way we do with the CDF, so that we know how much goes to sports, how much goes to education, how much goes to security. That is all stipulated, Madam Speaker. So I hope the counties can be able to borrow a leaf from how CDF is done. But Madam Speaker, with that, I wish to support, and allow me to also agree with the Speaker that as we improve this chamber, and I want to thank the clerk, because I think when we were during the recess, we find it's looking even better. And there's some very nice wordings at the door. It's very good work. And I hope we can be able to improve the signing in and the card system, as the Speaker says, so that we are able to follow and we avoid the issue of members putting a card, leaving and not talking to an issue, so that we are able to separate the two, as the Speaker has guided. So I thank you, and I thank you for the opportunity, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
The Honorable Ken Chonga, member for Kilifi South.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Madam Speaker, CDF is historical. It has its own history as to why it's there. The successive governments sat down and realized the need to come up with this fund. To be very honest, if we talk about how we have been able to bridge development enclaves in constituencies, or rather in regions of the country, I think that is where CDF has excelled most. Everybody is aware of how many people have had it so difficult to go to school prior to CDF was introduced. And also, there are those who have been celebrating since CDF was introduced. Indeed, as much as there have been complaints here and there, that there has been some mismanagement, or rather the fund needs to be well structured enough, there's so much that has been gained out of it. We have so many kids today who can afford a smile because of CDF. We have those who have graduated to different levels because of CDF. It is the only fund, actually, if I should concur with my fellow member Wangari, that can be visible on the ground. Madam Speaker, to some extent, some of the members have had to break the law a bit, but to fix areas which are not supposed to be CDF, or actually where the main national government could fix, just to make sure that people can be able to be safe and enjoy safe living. More often than not, CDF has been called upon to rescue issues of security, and it had excelled very well. More often than not, CDF has been called to rescue some roads which are leading to schools. Just because the road is leading to school, we find that CDF has made life easier. Otherwise, even the national government cannot access that school. And that is the reality. CDF, in so many other occasions, issues to do with the environment, we find coming in to bridge that gap. It has made the life of our people actually bearable more than when it was not. And in that respect, therefore, I stand to support the bill of CDF. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Kangema, Honorable Peter Kihungi.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. I start to support the report. Madam Speaker, on issues to do with CDF, Madam Speaker, we have now, this is the only fund that is making impact across the constituency. And I think as it has been, we need to do some few amendments on the CDF. Mostly, Madam Speaker, whenever it comes to the issue of allocation of fund, mostly on bursaries. We have seen, Madam Speaker, there are constituencies which whenever funds are allocated for bursaries, you find that the students that they are supposed to allocate sometimes are few. But there are some other constituencies whereby you try to allocate the little fund, the percentage of that 5%, you try to allocate, and it's never enough. But Madam Speaker, as we speak the issue of one man, one vote, one sharing, I think one of the areas that we might have a quick fix is where the percentage of allocation of bursaries should go to by the need, whereby you can find a constituency maybe in Nairobi. A constituency in Nairobi, you find the areas to do infrastructures are limited, but the number of students that they are supposed to give bursaries are extremely a lot, many. Therefore, whenever they may be allowed to give maybe over and above that 5% according to the need, you will find the bigger chunk of constituency fund will go to bursaries. And also, you go to some constituencies which are in semi-arid areas where the land mass is big. the need for more infrastructures is more than the need for the number of students to be given bursaries. Therefore, I think the issue of percentage should go by need basis and should not operate as if it's fixed across the country, that it may be varying according to the need in every constituency. Madam Speaker, I also support the idea whereby we wish that the CDF can continually go ahead and cover the issue of polytechnics. The infrastructures of polytechnics are many across the constituencies, but the counties as it is are not able to improve on the infrastructures and also utilize the issue of polytechnics. And if maybe the county government can agree, we have made the registration that gives polytechnics to the county government, that we can be able to operate polytechnics at the constituency development fund. Madam Speaker, we will be able to use our polytechnics to introduce the issue of online jobs, whereby our young people, we can install computers as the government is planning at the polytechnics level. We train our students at the local level, and they can start working on online jobs at the polytechnic level. Therefore, it's my call that the county government, because most of them has not utilized the polytechnics, they allow that polytechnics and TVETs jointly be under the national government. Then we fund at the constituency development fund, the infrastructure for computers. Then the national government in the issue of creation of job at the online jobs, we can install the computers at the polytechnics so that we can be able to employ as many youth as possible. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I start to support the report, and I wish members we can be able to support the report and also comprehend mostly on how we can be able to utilize our CDF as best we can, and also diversify the distribution of CDF on a need basis, but not on a fixed formula. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Beatrice Kemei, member for Kericho County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I had spoken to the same, but however, allow me to
The Honorable Member for Siaya County, Honorable Christine Ombaka.
Yes, Madam Speaker, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'd like also to add my voice to the report on CDF. I think CDF is one of the funds that have been well utilized in this country. Everybody knows about CDF. Even an old woman in the village knows there is CDF, and that if she wants money for bursary, she knows where to go. So it is well known because of the good work it has done. Most members who manage these funds have put up very good structures. I've seen some on social media. Some of them have constructed story buildings, you know, schools that are story buildings in the village, and that gives a very good image of a school, and the school students begin to enjoy going to school because they are going to a very well constructed school. So I really want to appreciate the work they are doing, including police posts that they are putting up, as well as the chief's offices. I've seen that in my county. Members of parliament have done excellent work, and I want to say that the job is well done. However, I want to also say that as we talk about CDF and the success story around it, we need also to think about NGAF, money that is allocated to women representatives. The women are doing great work with the little money that they have. They don't construct schools, but they do other work that is related to schools, and sometimes they also bring into boarding schools beds, especially where there are no beds in certain schools. I have done that myself.
I'm a woman rep for Saya County, and I've made many, many beds for boarders because they're sleeping they're sharing beds, or sometimes they sleep on the floor, and it's not looking very healthy. As we talk about CDF, never forget about NGAF, because they are sisters. They work together as a team. We work together with members of parliament, but the unfortunate thing is that our money is far too little, and we cover such a huge area. We have a whole county. I cover 6 constituencies. That is also 30 wards. It's not easy to bring development with this money when you're covering a whole county. So I would like to highlight the fact that we should never forget about women reps whose money is so little, and when it comes to this house, let's always support women reps as well and increase the money that they have so that they can do a better job and just equal to the task of CDF. Otherwise, I want to take it that all of us are great performers. We want to do the best for our counties, and all that matters to all of us. Whether you're a woman rep or you're a member of parliament, you need money to bring development to your people. So let's support each other when it comes to increasing the funds for any one of them. Thank you, and I support the report.
Member for Sirisia, Honorable John Waluke.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, to give me a chance also to speak on this. Madam Speaker, the work of CDF is known, and it is seen, it is visible everywhere in the country, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Member, I'm told you had already spoken. Please remove your cards if you had already spoken on this point. The Honorable Member for Kiharu Didinyoro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Madam Speaker, sorry. I rise to give my comments in regards to the report before us. And Madam Speaker, from the onset, I want to say that I am a very excited supporter of NGCDF. One, because, Madam Speaker, many times we talk about national expenditure and we talk about what the government is doing, but, Madam Speaker, at many times, the citizens of Kenya are not able to conceptualize exactly what is government, who is government. Because many times we think government is an amorphous figure somewhere seated, Madam Speaker, and especially insofar as development is concerned. CDF, NGCDF demystifies what government is insofar as projects are concerned, and especially in regards to community projects. Going around the country, Madam Speaker, anyone would see the kind of changes NGCDF has brought to our communities. Hardly would you go to any side of Kenya, to any corner of Kenya, without seeing the significance of NGCDF in regards, Madam Speaker, to projects that touch the members of our localities, and especially in the deepest, Madam Speaker, of the villages of Kenya. And therefore, Madam Speaker, we must keep on supporting NGCDF in all ways. We are already doing that through the budget. I am sure we'll be mentioning that tomorrow, insofar as enhancing NGCDF is concerned. And Madam Speaker, even structurally, I always feel that other devolved funds can borrow a lot from NGCDF, because the way in which NGCDF is administered, Madam Speaker, it can be a very good learning book for any country, and even within our country in regards to development funds. This is a fund where out of 100 shillings allocated, 95 goes into real, tangible development projects. And Madam Speaker, when we talk about real development projects, NGCDF is not just a kitty for building infrastructure, but also of adding value to the highest resource we have in the country, which is the human resource. And that is why, Madam Speaker, comparatively, CDF across all the 290 constituencies, we are the biggest supporters of education, Madam Speaker, only number 2 from the Ministry of Education. And this goes a long way into adding value, into servicing the human capital, because it is the highest priced factor of production that we have as a country. Madam Speaker, I have been toying with the idea that because we have been there as NGCDF, and a lot has happened in terms of brick and mortar, probably we could entertain ideas of even enlarging the bracket of bursaries that you are able to offer through NGCDF, and especially from the current BAD from 25 to 35% to somewhere around 50%. And the reason why, Madam Speaker, I've been entertaining this idea, I have a program supported by NGCDF in Kiharu, which we call Kiharu Masomo Bora Program, which supported by NGCDF, the parents of Kiharu who have their young ones in day schools, they pay only 1,000 per term, only 1,000 per term in terms of school fees. And those that which are interested in having remedial, they can have local arrangement with the teachers, but to a maximum of 1,000 per term. Madam Speaker, this is to enhance having as many of the people of that age in schools, but also, Madam Speaker, by making also school exciting. Because one of the things we've done even in that program is that we realized even us when we was in school, we could be kept in school more hours, not because of books, but other things that happens, and especially food. So after realizing that and knowing that we can't change that fact, we worked around it, changed even the menu, where majority of us when we was in school, we would take our staple food from Monday to the last day of the week, which is Friday. What we've done is to recalibrate the same. We have rice 3 days and the staple food, which is the 3 days. And we also provide food over Saturday, Madam Speaker, so that those learners who would want to be in school even on Saturdays have an opportunity to be in school. Madam Speaker, I don't just wish to give the scorecard, but I am giving the facts in terms of how NGCDF can be transformative. Out of 112 public primary schools in Kiharu, Madam Speaker, when we took over, and with the assistance of NGCDF, our classrooms were dilapidated. They never qualified to be called classrooms, Madam Speaker, because they were structures that looked more like museums. But Madam Speaker, through NGCDF, we have been able to transform all the 112 public primary schools, and all of them, they look like what we call like academies, and all of them are tiled, Madam Speaker, to the exclusion of none, all the 112. Madam Speaker, the reason I'm saying that this is because I believe NGCDF being a community fund, there is a lot we can do around it, and especially in how we expend that money. Community money should not be expended by big contractors from big cities. The contractors who should benefit from the funds that are community-based are actually the people around the areas that we undertake those projects. And that is what we did in Kiharu, Madam Speaker. All our projects, we involve the local community. We use the procurement methods that necessitate that all the money remains around the community. And Madam Speaker, by doing so, initially we imparted skills. Number one of fixing tiles to 150 foodies from Kiharu who have done all the tiling. And we also trained our in-house team of 150 who do all the manner of professional painting that we do. The reason I'm saying this is not basically because of Kiharu and GCDF. I'm saying this having Kiharu and GCDF as a representation of the other 290, just to show the country the level at which NGCDF can transform. Madam Speaker, because of the nature of this fund, we have had many other countries coming to Kenya. Just recently, I was with one of our colleagues, a friend of mine from the Parliament of Zambia. They have a similar fund like NGCDF, and Madam Speaker, they actually came to benchmark on how to administer NGCDF from Kenya. We have to keep ourselves alive into the dynamics of change, even in management of such funds, so that we do not again give these kind of tale stories like the ones we give when Singapore came to Kenya to run about national development. And therefore, the more the reason that NGCDF had to keep evolving so that it continues, Madam Speaker, to address issues that are current. And that is part of the reason why I still believe and entertain the idea that we must enlarge the bracket of NGCDF in terms of bursary, because many more constituencies can offer Masomobora or that kind of program where we lessen the burden of parents, Madam Speaker, and especially those who have their children in day schools. Mr. Speaker, I have seen there is a change, just because of the viewers, they don't get confused. There is a Mr. and Mrs. And Madam. Mr. Speaker, I support this report and support the fact that we continue to be audited properly through internal auditors and also the Office of the Auditor General, because anywhere money is concerned, Mr. Speaker, and we are paying people for them to check on us, it is important for them to continue doing that job so that every shilling will count insofar as community development is concerned. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I also want to hail the kind of good work that we see being done in Homa Bay Town constituency, which is also one of the leading constituencies in terms of administering NGCDF. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Mabona MP for Suba North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, who is, I can see my good friend, Honorable Gladys Bocholei, has moved. And instead now we have my uncle, who is very preoccupied now with a new subject and agenda. But I will not mention his agenda. Mr. Speaker, I just want to say I support the report that is before the House on the audits of several CDF in different constituencies. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, I will not speak too much to a lot of the issues our members have spoken, but I just want to say that I indeed agree with member that CDF has enhanced development in our constituencies. Mr. Speaker, one of the things that was very common, especially in rural constituencies like mine, was mud-walled classrooms. With CDF, mud-walled classrooms have become a thing of the past. Mr. Speaker, the other thing that I would want to praise CDF for is enhanced equity. Mr. Speaker, in the past, what governments would do is if you didn't vote in for a government, and I've actually seen a statement to that effect very recently, then development would not go your side of the world. But with CDF, whether you support the government or not, you now have funds through which you can support. And through that, Mr. Speaker, it also enhances democracy, which is also a good thing. Mr. Speaker, however, one of the things that we need to mention about CDF is that we now need to move from equity to equality. Mr. Speaker, why do I say that? One of the things that a lot of the public would challenge us in relation to my good friend, the late Bernard Okoth of Kibra, was that people would tell you that look at the kind of classes that Honorable Bernard is building, because he would be doing storied buildings while you do 1 or 2 classes. But what people didn't realize is Kibra has 9 schools, and we have over 100 schools. So how do you compete against 9 established schools against over 100, almost 200 schools in the rural? And then some of them don't even have schools. You're actually starting schools afresh. Like I've said here, one of the islands, I'm the one who built the first class ever, called Sukru Island. Mr. Speaker, because of that, we need to move more towards equality in provision of CDF funds and not only equity. Right now, CDF uses equity and not equality. Mr. Speaker, I'd also want to say that CDF is one of the best managed funds, if not actually the best managed fund in the country. Mr. Speaker, again, members have spoken to the issue, and my chairman of budget has spoken to the issue of, I think CDF is actually audited by 3 auditors. And Mr. Speaker, I usually find it laughable when I hear people saying that CDF is the pocket change of a member of parliament. If it was actually pocket change, with a very enlightened populace, you are not likely to come back. You'll never be elected if CDF was actually pocket change. What I want to encourage, there's a team that was actually doing a report on amendment, proposed amendment to the Constitution. And what I would want to encourage, I wasn't in that committee, but what I want to encourage is we need to bring a bold proposal that changes the architecture of governance so that we don't just think in the traditional way of governance, and we come up with a sui generis system that works for Kenya, so that we don't say that we have the 3 arms of government and each of them must have this system working. Why should we kill a system that is working well, that many countries are actually trying to emulate? Why? Because some French guy made some comment about separation of powers years ago. If that separation of powers doesn't serve us well right now, then let's do what works for us. We are a poor, suffering country, and what we need is development, and CDF has worked. And contrary to what people say, actually, it is making a lot of difference in people's life. Mr. Speaker, I want to just finish by saying, before I finish, I actually want to say that we are focused a lot on the brick and mortar issues, but CDF also actually has done a lot on software in terms of mentorship and all that. Suba North, we are just about to launch 2 books for our high school students and for university students and our program, Mawina, which is a mentorship program for students. It's both scholarship and mentorship program that helps produce professionals within the constituency. So it's not just about brick and mortar. I'm just regretting, Mr. Speaker, that I wish CDF had taken on a lot more in terms of responsibility and taken away some of the responsibility from the county government constitutionally, because a lot of the county governments have failed us. They have a lot more resources than us, but in terms of the products, it's actually embarrassing. We sometimes have to be innovative and creative to meet demands which are actually county government demands, because they are not meeting them and the communities need them. So finally, Mr. Speaker, one of the things I want to say in terms of the audits, I want to say that because this CDF helps a lot of people, I want to encourage auditors that they need to be serious when they are auditing CDF. Let them not play monkey business with CDF. Mr. Speaker, in this country, it is very difficult to be ethical and to be a person of integrity. The people who are ethical and persons of integrity are the ones who are hounded by these auditors. Mr. Speaker, I think I've shared with you before when I first got into CDF, and I was informed that there could be a case of misappropriation. So being the nice ethical person I am, I came and reported and asked that my fund account manager be removed and requested for an internal audit. I have regretted to date why I bothered to be a good citizen, because we were actually given a false audit, creating fake schools, creating purported misappropriation, and then different government agencies that are supposed to be the ones that are ensuring that people do the right things are busy following you, asking you to give them bribes of 3 million. I told them to go to hell. And Mr. Speaker, we were with you when I took this matter to the EACC. I am actually sad to date that that matter has not been followed up. When you give a wrong and false audit, you say that a school that exists in Suba North does not exist. It's an imaginary school. And we give you bank records that shows that it was given money. merely because we've refused to give you 3 million. Honorable members of parliament here are shy, they don't want to say the things that go on in CDF in terms of our oversight role. Why? Because you know if you speak, you will be targeted. Me, I'm willing to be targeted so that things can go right. We are tired of being asked for money. Auditors start auditing and the first thing they tell you is bring upfront so much money. For what? For nothing. And if you don't give, your results are qualified. So continue qualifying, but you need to do the right thing. I will speak the correct things until I leave this house. Even if I am sacrificed for speaking the right thing, I will. But we need to do the right thing that serves Kenyans, because we came here to serve Kenyans, not to take away money from Kenyans. So I'd want to encourage, first of all, the CDF office in Nairobi to look into how that audit was done so wrong that it is even embarrassing. When I actually showed them with evidence and proof that all these things that are being given here are false, to date nothing has been taken against the auditor who did that report. What about the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission? They have not done anything. Instead, what you get is DCI, other agencies following you, asking you for bribes every now and again. And I want to tell them, shame on you. And the next time you call me, I'm going to mention you here by name. Stop following us here for bribes. If we don't speak these things, nobody will. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, I support. But let the auditors know that their work is to serve Kenyans, not to harass Kenyans. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Millie Odhiambo Mabona, for that good direction in terms of how we should audit. The Honorable Rashid Betsimba, the MP for Kisauni.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kunipa fursa hii na mimi kupenyeza sauti yangu. Kwanza niunge mkono ripoti ya mhandisi wa fedha. Halafu pia nitilie mkazo kwamba
did I see the Honorable Ruth Odinga, the women rep for Kisumu, request for the opportunity to talk to this motion? Is Honorable Ruth Odinga in the house? Proceed, Honorable Betsimba.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Nitie sauti yangu hasa kwa miradi hii ya hazina ya NGCDF. Mheshimiwa Spika, ile miradi inayopatikana inayoonekana katika maeneo yetu ni ya NGCDF. Na la kusikitisha zaidi ni kwamba hivi sasa tunakaribia mwaka mwingine, hata robo ya pesa hatujapata. Ni hatari sana kwa sababu hii ndio fedha ambazo zilikuwa zinasaidia mwananchi ambaye ni maskini, ambaye hajiwezi, lakini sasa hana la kufanya kwa sababu ofisi zetu hazina fedha. Hata sisi tumepeana basari, lakini mpaka sasa hatujamaliza kupeana sekondari na vyuo vikuu kwa sababu fedha hakuna. Mheshimiwa Spika, nikueleze hivi sasa ni wakati wa mvua. Mijengo mingi ya shule imeanguka. Vyoo vimefurika. Kila siku kiuliza unaambiwa exchequer. Tunaenda mwaka mwingine. Sasa tutakuwa tena kwenye pending bill ama namna gani? Hii ni hatari kubwa sana ambayo watu wanapitia kama Wakenya, hali ngumu. Ukiangalia mashule hivi sasa, vyoo vimefurika. Kipindupindu sasa kinaanza kuingia katika madarasa yetu, katika mashule yetu, na huku unaambiwa ni exchequer, tunangoja exchequer. Lazima tueleze shida iko wapi, kwa sababu kama ni fedha ziko, kwa nini haziachiliwi? Na hii ndio miradi ambayo inasaidia wananchi. Nikupa mfano, katika shule za Kisauni kuna shule kama Kashani Primary, watoto wanasoma paka mlangoni, wanakaa chini, hata madawati hakuna. Watoto wanapata funza, zile floors zimevunjika, na huku fedha unaambiwa ngoja exchequer. Hii ni kitu cha kusikitisha sana kinachoendelea. Na ukiangalia hivi sasa wakati wa mvua, kuta nyingi, Magogoni Primary imeanguka. Ukiangalia Besimba Primary ukuta umeanguka, lakini hatuna fedha za kuwasaidia wale watu ili waweze kujiendeleza ama kukaa katika kusoma katika mazingira mazuri. Kwa hivyo sisi tunasema huyu waziri wa fedha ahakikishe kwamba ameachilia hizi fedha kabla hatujaanza hata kujadili hiyo inaokuja nyingine. kwa sababu tumepitisha mpaka supplementary budget, hakuna kitu kinaachiliwa. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nasema kwamba kiupande wangu na watu Kenya nzima, taifa wanaona, wanajua kwamba hazina ya CDF imefanya makubwa sana. Kuna watu wamesomeshwa kuanzia kidato cha kwanza mpaka cha 4. Kuna watu wanasahizo wameregeshwa katika vyuo vikuu. Hazina za CDF ndio zinawasaidia. Lakini leo tunasikitika kwamba kwa mara ya kwanza taifa hili tangu ianze hazina hii imekuja kwamba pesa hakuna kitu kinaachiliwa, hakuna miradi inafanyika, mafuriko yameingia mitaani, hatujui tutafanya nini. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika na wenzangu hapa katika bunge hili, tuhakikishe kwamba tumesukuma wizara waachilie hizi fedha ili zifaidie watu wetu. Kwa haya mengi, Mheshimiwa Spika, nashukuru kunipa fursa hii. Asante sana.
Asante sana mjumbe wa Musop, Mheshimiwa Abraham Kirwa.
Mr. Speaker,
What is out of order, Honorable Millie Odhiambo? Would you approach the Honorable Millie before you speak? Would you approach the speaker? Yes. Yeah, proceed, Honorable Kiro, in the meantime.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank you for this opportunity that you've given me to contribute to this motion on CDF. Mr. Speaker, I want to really appreciate the work that CDF has done in this nation. It has truly made a big difference in places where the distribution of funds from the national government was not able to reach, especially constituencies like Mosop, where we were truly sidelined for many years and most of the projects was never done. And so what CDF has done has been able to truly bring us things like water. We've been able to build schools. We've been able to build chief's offices using the funds from the CDF. So CDF has truly transformed most parts of this country. It has really touched so many families that they could not have been able to go to school. Most of my constituency depends on agriculture, and most of them, they don't really have enough money to pay for the student school fees. So bursaries from CDF has made a big difference in making sure that those kids or those students from low-income families, from families that they are not able to support themselves, they have been given, some receive full scholarships, some of them receive partial, but it has made a difference. So this CDF fund has truly changed this country in many ways, and it continues to do the same. Places where we didn't have water, now CDF has gone out of its way, although it's a function of the county government, but some way, somehow, CDF has also been able to help in some of those areas. In terms of matching for last mile, CDF has been able to bring last mile to some of the areas which it could not have been possible to have power in most of the constituencies, especially Mosop. So the fact that we have a matching grant that actually allows us to match with Kenya Power, it has helped us to be able to give last mile to most of the families. So this fund, as much as it might not be a lot of money, but it has been felt by most of the families, it has been felt in most parts of this country, it has truly made a big difference. And I want to hope and believe that this fund will never end soon. It will continue, and I want to just challenge the government to continue increasing the allocation on CDF, because it is the only fund that actually can be quantified for what it has done and for what it continues to do. So this fund, from my own perspective, we have done renovations. I just came back from the recess as we all came, but we have done a lot in the short time that we were home through the CDF that we just received. We may not have gotten all the disbursement, but it continues to touch lives. It continues to change the economy of our country, to change the projects in our country. And so I am for the support that we continue to support this fund and continue to even increase the allocation so that it will continue to transform our nation. Thank you again, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Member of Parliament for Kisumu County, the Honorable Ruth Odinga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to put my case across for the CDF fund. CDF is a fund that needs to be actually made to become, we get more of the CDF. I'm saying this because having been in the county governments, most of the time the county government funds don't come. Even as I'm speaking to you right now, the county government funds have not come down. And it is the CDF that has played a role in ensuring that many bursaries have been dispersed to their students and the needy have gone back to school. So for me, in all the times that I've been in the county governments, when CDF is there, CDF supports a lot. Even where I'm coming from, in Kisumu West, as I'm speaking, most of the areas are inaccessible. And if it was not for the CDF fund, most of these areas would not have come out, become accessible to the women and the youth and people with disabilities who need to use these accessories to the market and all that. So for me, I believe that CDF combined with GAF, and if GAF could be made to become more to support those women, youth, and people with disability, I think that the two of them could really support to ensure. I was not for the CDF fund when I was in the county government, but when I now came and realized that when we started working in the county government, I realized that actually without CDF, most of the government projects would have stalled. And mark you, in all times, CDF comes before any county government funding. So it ensures that people are not sitting waiting for the government to get, the local government to get the reimbursement. And I believe if it's given more, most of the people, the MPs are using this fund better than what is going on in the local authorities. To be honest, the MPs are not misusing this CDF fund. CDF fund is felt on the ground. And CDF fund is a fund I'm sure the local people and the Kenyans will support and want it more than any other fund that is there. It is a better fund. Put more money on CDF. Forget about the 3% levy on housing and all. CDF fund needs to be enhanced. Asante sana.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ruth Odinga. Do we have the Member of Parliament for Marakwet West, Honorable Timothy Torotich?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity to contribute on this very important motion. Mr. Speaker, it is not in doubt that the CDF fund has been of great significance in this country. Mr. Speaker, if you compare the monies sent to the constituencies through the CDF and the monies sent to the counties, Mr. Speaker, you will note that there is a marginal difference on how their money is spent. Mr. Speaker, the reason why CDF has been successful is because of its lean management. And Mr. Speaker, that is why we insisted before this House that we need to clothe CDF in the Constitution, that CDF must be anchored in the Constitution so that no one will be able to challenge the same before our courts. Mr. Speaker, CDF has assisted in terms of developing our infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, I don't know what would have happened to our public primary schools, bearing in mind that the fact that our public primary schools and our secondary institutions are a function of the national government. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened to those institutions if there was no CDF. Because, Mr. Speaker, CDF has been of great importance to our constituencies. Mr. Speaker, but what I'm worried about is the report we are discussing, Mr. Speaker, before this House, is a report of the Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee in respect to the financial year 2013-14, and then 14-15, and then 15-16. Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate that a report that should have been discussed in 2018 is being discussed in 2023. Mr. Speaker, for example, I have read a very interesting recommendation in one of the reports that says that at some point there is a member of parliament who registered the assets of CDF, and in particular a certain vehicle in the name of the Member of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I'm pretty sure that if this were to happen in this year or in the last financial year, then stern measures would have been taken against that individual. So, Mr. Speaker, secondly, I have read the report in full and in detail. Mr. Speaker, there is need for continuous capacity building of the staff of CDF. Mr. Speaker, you realize that most of the CDF staff are just employed, and most often than not, the members of parliament have a hand in the employment of those people, and of course through a competitive process. So, Mr. Speaker, these people need a continuous and a thorough training so that they can be able to be in line with the code of conduct of public service. Mr. Speaker, also in terms of uniformity of projects, we need to standardize the kind of project that we have. You find that different constituencies have different standardization of projects, so that if we have uniformity of projects in the constituencies, then, Mr. Speaker, there will be value for money in our constituencies. Mr. Speaker, but the biggest and the most critical thing that has affected CDF in this country is the late disbursement of CDF funds. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, there are projects that are pending in our constituencies. Mr. Speaker, those projects are incomplete. Our students, our pupils need to use laboratories, need to use classrooms, need to use the dormitories, but the same have not been ready for occupation because the government has not remitted the amounts of money that they are supposed to remit. So, Mr. Speaker, I think that is the biggest challenge that we face in terms of CDF in this country. Mr. Speaker, this House must take stern action, must take stern measures against our national treasury. Mr. Speaker, there is no reason why other government departments are fully funded, whereas our constituency development funds have not been remitted to the constituency. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, there are no funds for development that have been disbursed in the constituencies. For me, I think this is an insult to this House. It is an insult to our members of parliament, and that is why we must be able to stamp the authority of this House in terms of parliamentary sovereignty. Mr. Speaker, this is not an arm of the executive. This is parliament. This is an arm of the government. Mr. Speaker, we have three arms of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. This parliament is not an arm of the executive. And that is why we must be able to stamp our authority as a House. And the reason why the funds have not been disbursed is because of the way we have acted as a House. Mr. Speaker, we need to have a firm resolve in this House so that we gain the respect that we deserve as a National Assembly. Because if we become an appendage of either arms of government, then even if we ask for funds to be disbursed to our constituencies, we have lost our independence, we have lost our sovereignty in quotes, and therefore, even if we demand, we do not have that respect from the executive. So, Your Honor, we must stamp our feet and our authority as a House so that we have that respect. Mr. Speaker, the other issue that the problem we have is if there is a problem on matters of CDF, the first person to be blamed is the Member of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, it is very unfortunate. It should be noted that the Member of Parliament does not play any role in terms of CDF. The person, we have an accounting officer, and that is the person who should take the ultimate responsibility when it comes to matters of CDF. Most often than not, the Member of Parliament, with their audit queries, the buck normally in terms of what the public perceives is that the buck stops at the Member of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, that is not the correct position. The correct position is as CDF is managed through the office of the fund manager, and therefore the Member of Parliament has no role in terms of the management of CDF. Mr. Speaker, I also call upon the COCs, that is the constituency oversight committees in our constituencies, to play their role. Because, Mr. Speaker, the question is, who polices the fund manager? Who polices the officers serving in CDF? Mr. Speaker, the COC must stamp the authority and be able to oversight the CDF committee so that they can be able to execute their mandate or they discharge their mandate without any fear of intimidation. Mr. Speaker, we also still call for continued increase in the allocation of CDF. Mr. Speaker, you realize that there was a slight improvement in the formula for allocation of CDF. But Mr. Speaker, you realize that the highest constituency in this country receives a paltry, around 165 million. That is the highest allocation that a constituency receives in this country. Mr. Speaker, if you compare the importance of CDF to the amount allocated, Mr. Speaker, there is a big difference. And that is why, as this House, we should call for an increment in CDF, because as we have agreed, CDF plays a critical role, plays an important role, and of course, that trickles down to the people who are on the ground. Mr. Speaker, so many children have benefited from our bursaries. And there has been no audit queries, so much audit queries in terms of bursaries, because the bursaries benefits most of our children, and for that reason, Mr. Speaker, sir, I fully support this report. I fully support the recommendation contained therein, and I believe that if the recommendations are adopted as they are, then we shall have a CDF that...
Honorable Toroitich,
yes.
It is very refreshing to listen to you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Could you be rushing because you are running out of time? Because I would be keen to give you more time if you still have contributions to make.
Mr. Speaker.
More so, you know, that point you made on sovereignty of the House and how the audit process should be undertaken is quite relevant and refreshing for me. You need more time or you are concluding?
Very well, Mr. Speaker. Maybe I can prosecute that matter.
I'll give you 3 more minutes.
That are raised in this House. Mr. Speaker, what I've said is... Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for adding me more time to prosecute on that matter. Mr. Speaker, what I've said is this House must stamp its authority. Mr. Speaker, Montesquieu was never wrong when he talked about separation of powers. And in this country, and in the entire Commonwealth jurisdiction, there is a reason why we have 3 arms of government. The judiciary...
Just a minute, Honorable Toroitich. Honorable Lynette Jepchichir, would you approach the Speaker, please?
Mr. Speaker, I've said Montesquieu was never wrong when he articulated that for a functional democracy, we must have 3 arms of government. Mr. Speaker, there is a reason why under our Constitution, we have the executive, the judiciary, and this House, Parliament. Mr. Speaker, and I've said once, not once, not twice, but severally, that this House is not an appendage of the executive. This House must be able to stand firm. This House must be able to prosecute its business without being directed by the executive. And Mr. Speaker, the reason why I've said that is because one of the critical things that a member of parliament must have in order to prosecute his or her duties at the local level is the CDF. And the reason why CDF has not been released to our people, to their constituencies. Mr. Speaker, it's a shame that 7 months since these members took oath in this office, CDF, development expenditure of CDF has not been released to their constituencies. And we are here as members of parliament, we are mum, we are not saying anything, yet this financial year has lapsed and no amount of CDF has been released to our constituencies. Mr. Speaker, it's a shame. And the reason I've said that is because this House has acted in a manner to suggest that we are an appendage of the executive, and therefore, when we want to question for our funds, we are told, see, you relax, you will get your money. Mr. Speaker, for me as a member of parliament, it's unfortunate, and we must be able to restate the sovereignty of this house. We must be able to restate, and so that this house can have the respect that we deserve. So, Mr. Speaker, for those few remarks, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to support this very important report before this house.
Thank you, Honorable Toroitich. The Honorable Jared Okello.
I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And from the outset, Honorable Speaker, in the course of our recess, which just ended, I was going around Nyando constituency. I was confronted by very ugly scenes around the junior secondary school education, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it is good to note that even though we birthed the junior secondary school during the last regime, the approach that has been employed by this regime hasn't been anything to write home about. Classes were built in secondary schools, and this regime chose to have our children continue learning in their primary schools, even though junior secondary school. So we have a great shortage of classrooms in these schools, yet the classes where they should be carrying out their studies are left in secondary schools, Honorable Speaker. This regime ought to have looked at this thing in depth before making that decision to continue having them in the existing primary schools. It creates an imbalance, Honorable Speaker. You have very young children in Standard 7 wearing trousers and blazers amidst other students who are putting on shorts. Even those who are in Standard 8 are putting on shorts, yet their juniors in class 7 are putting on the trousers and blazers, Honorable Speaker. This kind of imbalance ought not to have taken shape. And that is why the drafters of the junior secondary school section so chose to have them go to high school, where everybody else is dressed just like them, Honorable Speaker. I noted with great dismay that even though there are 14 compulsory subjects and other elective subjects that come to about 8, so 22 in number, only one teacher is plugged into a junior secondary school. Even if you are a genius, for heaven's sake, you cannot teach 22 subjects, Honorable Speaker, and this is something that has to be properly looked into. And when this regime chose to have 35,000 more additional teachers to primary schools, I had thought that they were going to be sane enough, amid this insanity, to have these teachers going to junior secondary schools. So there is a great shortage in those schools, Honorable Speaker. Besides the fact that there are certain subjects that call for laboratories, and there are no laboratories in all these schools. So you have children undertaking theory lessons without practicals, Honorable Speaker. So this is total disarray of our education system, Honorable Speaker. Amidst all this disorganization, they are also expected to pay 11,000 shillings, dubbed lunch money. Now, it is good to have lunch in school, because lunch probably is the only meal that these children can have in a day, amidst the poverty that has permeated our systems. But you have children who cannot afford 11,000 shillings to pay, but they are forced to pay that kind of money, Honorable Speaker. So you ask yourself, what happened? Just the other year, they were running back home to eat and come back to school in the afternoon. Now, parents are being forced to check out 11,000 shillings every year. Now, our CDF, NGCDF system has not given us regulations to go down deep into Standard 6 or Standard 7. So, as I was walking around my constituency, I was being confronted by these facts. To have these children be put under the category of NGCDF under bursary. I was telling them, no, we cannot do that because our regulations do not allow us to do so. So it's a total mess, Honorable Speaker, and I wish at one point in time, this House will come to make a decision around junior secondary schools. If it is not addressed in good time, Honorable Speaker, I'm very afraid that we are losing a generation, academically speaking. And if we lose a generation, an entire generation, you know, thousands and thousands of students, what will then happen to them few years to come? My kid in Standard 7 will be asking me, Dad, you saw this happening and you never raised any alarm. At least I will be vindicated by this debate, Honorable Speaker, that I tried to bring it to light so that our children can know that that kind of disorganization should not be allowed to pass, Honorable Speaker. Now, on this report, Honorable Speaker, the drafters of the CDF Act 2003 came to the realization of how other areas were alienated by the successive regimes. That where you have to vote a particular pattern in order to get benefits out of it. You remember, even 2 days ago, and I'm glad that my colleague here has said this House is not an appendage or a stooge of State House. Honorable Speaker, we listened to one William Samoei Ruto over the weekend dictating terms to this House. And you know, when we were in school, for us who were privileged to undertake executive education, we were told about separation of powers, how Parliament is separate from the judiciary and is also separate from the executive, and that no House or no arm of government can dictate to the other on how it conducts its business. I was perplexed beyond recognition that William Samoei Ruto could stand up to dictate to this House how they will handle the finance bill, Honorable Speaker. What happened to the independence of these institutions? What happened to the matter of argumentation? Because you have to argue. A president, so he calls himself, cannot dictate to this House how we conduct our businesses. And if that was, you know, to threaten certain members of this House to vote a particular pattern, then I'm very afraid that they are just starting. You never know how much they would want to push in the next few years. And if we are not afraid, Honorable Speaker, don't be shocked to be confronted by a bill that will be extending the life of a president in this country. It has happened to our neighboring country. It can happen now. So what the executive is trying to do is to see how much they can push so that they can now transact those clandestine businesses in this republic, Honorable Speaker. Now, the drafters of our NGCDF, fully recognizing that there are issues that needed to be addressed in schools, with our security, with our sporting culture, and many others, came up with this NGCDF. And one thing that I really appreciate them for is how transparent issues of CDF are, Honorable Speaker. This is one money that if you have to reallocate, then you have to seek permission. Unlike devolution, where, you know, it is at the disposal of a governor and his cabinet to choose as and where money goes without seeking any approval from anybody, Honorable Speaker. Our money is directly plugged to projects. And how I wish that even those who were carrying out the devolution as an act of Parliament and infusing it within the Constitution, borrowed from this system that money must be plugged into a project. That is how issues of corruption are nipped at the bud, Honorable Speaker. And, you know, you move around this country, the only good news only comes from CDF. Whereas billions are usually expended to counties, there is nothing to write home about them, Honorable Speaker. Even when there is no water, there is no health care, there is no roads, no one is asking the governor, they are still coming to us as members of Parliament to answer to these questions, Honorable Speaker. So I wish that the drafters took that model emanating from the NGCDF in order to undertake all the transactions, Honorable Speaker. Now, this inordinate delay that has been spoken by my colleagues here is something that needs to be properly checked, Honorable Speaker. We just disbursed some few monies going towards bursaries, But then what happens to all the projects that we hitherto earmarked for upgrading of classrooms or building new classrooms and doing sporting events and many other things, Honorable Speaker? And the money that we got to some constituencies is not even enough to do bursaries, Honorable Speaker. And we are coming to the end of this financial year. And this House is keeping quiet. Yet, this is the same House that passes budgets for all other departments within government, Honorable Speaker. We haven't noted not in a delay with the executive arm of government. Just the other day, you saw the Chief Justice Parliament, we have to beg.
You have it.
Thank you. I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. So when the judiciary gets its full monies, the executive gets what it needs inside its budget, and all those monies come from appropriation from this House, Honorable Speaker. And yet, when it comes to our matters, then we are told that, Treasury has not released your exchequer. And then you'll be told that the Speaker and the clerk will be meeting with the Treasury Cabinet Secretary to talk about our monies, Honorable Speaker. We have to beg, literally, living on our knees, talking to the executive that has no due respect to the members of this House and what it ought to be doing, Honorable Speaker. These are matters that we must confront. These are matters that we have to be very much alive to. We are not going to allow the judiciary, buying and driving state-of-the-art vehicles and showcasing them in public functions, and then giving a swipe at the members of Parliament without due regard to the participatory role that we play in the welfare of this country, Honorable Speaker. So I want to challenge us that this House has teeth that it has refused to put into use. Today, we tabled the budget, the appropriations, budget and appropriations bill. Today, we tabled the public finance bill. The executive expects that you will shepherd the entire process without any hitches. Yet, there is no CDF. How I wish that we can stand our ground the way we did it in Mombasa and say, no budget, no CDF, and no CDF, no budget. And we say, no public finance bill. Of course, I will oppose that finance bill with all my might, but let us come to the realization that this House has what it takes to do what is necessary so that we champion the interest of the people that we represent out there. With those many remarks, I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Jared Okello. The Honorable Dr. Eve Obara, the MP for Kapondo Kasipul.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I too stand to support the report. Mr. Speaker, I support the sentiments of my colleagues on the role, the important role that CDF has played in our communities. Mr. Speaker, as has been mentioned by almost all the speakers who have spoken this afternoon, is that there is no ward that you would visit in this country, in all the 290 constituencies, that you would not see a project of CDF. Mr. Speaker, the manner in which the fund is managed is clear, structured, and well understood. Mr. Speaker, at this juncture, let me appreciate those of us who came ahead of us and made sure that this fund was in place for equity. So today, Mr. Speaker, each region can plan and develop its region in line with their greatest priority need. Mr. Speaker, if you talk about equity, if you talk about fairness, the distribution of resources in this country, then you look at the CDF. I therefore am surprised, Mr. Speaker, that any government would delay the release of these funds. Because I'm sure if these funds were already released and activities going on around the constituencies, there would be less noise about the suffering of the citizens of this country. Bursaries have been given out, but the money was not sufficient for everybody, or it was not enough to give to everybody. But if it was given then, the burden to the parents would have been lessened. And this, I hope our leadership can see this and release this money before the end of this financial year. Mr. Speaker, we have projects that we had started. We had committed in our plans to complete them within the year. And as it is going to roll over to the next financial year and therefore affect all our plans. Mr. Speaker, I call upon the government and the leadership of this House to get out, see the minister, impress upon him the need for this money to be released. Mr. Speaker, the report has come out, and we have seen that there is marked improvement on the operations of the CDF. But at the same time, we have also seen that there are certain gaps in the manner in which it is being managed in certain areas. Mr. Speaker, I put this squarely at the footstep of some of the rogue fund managers that have been posted to some constituencies. And I call upon the board, the CDF board, to rein upon these officers and remove them from the field. Discipline them or dismiss them, because I'm sure, I being one, we have reported on this matter to the board of the CDF. Yes, I want to say that in my area, action has been taken, but I believe that in other areas, this still is the problem. The board CEO, please take note, even as we churn out these reports. Please take note and weed out these corrupt officers from our midst in the constituencies. Mr. Speaker, I want to also note that different countries have come to Kenya to benchmark on this model. And that tells you something about even what is going out there about the model, our CDF model. And therefore, when we see this, and we see how people talk about it out there, the pride that they have that there's a Kenyan country that has actually managed to decentralize funds and manage it so that there's equity within this country. I am still baffled and surprised that this money is still being held. I again appeal and call upon the government to release the money, even as we are going through a very difficult time within the society now about the finance bill. These are some of the things that if they were done, then I think there would have been a little bit consideration on certain aspects of the bill. But as we speak now, Mr. Speaker, my constituents, I have told me, please we do not support the bill in the manner in which it is presented, and I will therefore go with the sentiments of my constituents and say no. Thank you. Thank you very much. I support the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ivo Bara. When the speaker recognized you, some thought you were going to speak about GAF. They don't understand in Normal Bay, women leaders of your caliber are elected to lead constituencies. Very great contributions. Thank you very much. The Honorable Andrew Okuome, Adepo, the MP for Karachuonyo. You want to contribute to this?
Mr. Speaker, thanks so much for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this item of presentation that came from the Auditor General. Mr. Speaker, CDF is at the heart of Kenyans. Perhaps of all the funds we know of, CDF is the best known all over. Not just because it is called Constituency Development Fund, but it's because of what it does. Everything that CDF does is at the heart of every Kenyan. If you talk of schools, CDF is leading. And what CDF does is graciously helping today and the future Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, when we talk of CDF, I wish the government could be with us together in the thought, because we are helping the government as well. We are helping the Kenyans as well. If you were to properly report what CDF has done, really, you would think it is the institution that the government should emphasize on in development. I do agree that some of the mistakes occurred. I don't know whether they are professional mistakes or whether they are mistakes of the kind which is very predominant in the Kenyan government service. That's the normal corruption we know of. Yes, one may say this and that are corruption. If they are, then maybe appropriate action can be taken. But we should not just blind ourselves and see nothing but CDF without considering that the whole government system, be it national government or county, corruption is almost living with every person that's at the top there going down. So this is not just an issue that can be treated by saying it is this particular case. I wish there was a possibility that the government can overhaul its idea on the managerial system being used so that a method can be found that would get us out of this menace of corruption, right from the top in national government to the lowest level possible, and a similar thing be done at the county level. That's when we can say, when we get a positive result, that's when we can say, yes, we have done some work. But just to isolate CDF and think of it alone without considering others, and probably punish those in CDF alone without punishing any other person in any other arm of government, will be discriminatory, and I would say would be wrong. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me just get you back to what I was saying, what I started with, which is the work and contribution CDF or NGCDF has done to this country. I started by talking of schools, the buildings, classrooms. Honestly, I think I would say without fearing that many, many schools have been built because of CDF. I remember last year or the year before last, the government was building some classrooms to accommodate, I don't know whether it was JSS But then if you look at the quality of work they did, I'm now referring to my own constituency. The quality of work they did compared to mine, we are miles apart. What they did is completely junior to what I did with the CDF. I can therefore stand very strongly up and say that with the CDF, I did, with the same amount, I did a lot more than what the government did with the amount they used during the late Professor Magoha's time. If they have a project like that one for future, if they want to get the result equal to the funds they spent, I would urge that they use CDF. They will say they have scored because they will have achieved their objective. Yes, I know we have many things that need to be done, like GISS as almost. They don't have laboratories in many schools. They don't have classrooms in many schools. They are still lacking in building in several ways. If the national government wanted this to be built, they should use CDF, NGCDF, and give that money to NGCDF to do the work for them. They will then have an opportunity to see what NGCDF can do. And then even on the security side, because our mandate covers security and education, on the security side, we have built a number of classrooms for the administration, the former provincial administration. We have built a number of offices for them, which I think is a noble thing. It is done. But then come the year 22, 23, Mr. Speaker, I am a very disappointed MP, and I know I'm disappointed together with my colleagues, because the financial year is ending. Today is 6th. It is ending in, well, I would say 24 days' time. And yet, the government has been adamant. We make noise, nobody listens. They don't want to give us the remaining part of the money. I'm almost certain, because I heard the leader of majority saying, we are going to get some answer to the question that was asked by one of us. I know they probably will say, yeah, you are going to get it within such and such a time. But maybe we are now used. The promises are always there. We get them, but the action doesn't follow. We are immune to what they say, because they say it and nothing is done. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think the members of parliament should now come up strongly and say with one strong voice that we cannot go ahead with any bill until this money is given. Because it's the money that helps our people. If we don't get it, Mr. Speaker, even your position as a member of parliament is in the limbo. It is under threat. You cannot be sure that wananchi will feel you did any work for them. Because the major work we do for the people directly is what we do with the CDF. That's why it is important CDF is given to us so that we can be productive in line with our promises to those who elected us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me the opportunity. I support.
Thank you, Honorable Andrew Ukome. Is there any more? I'm not seeing any more. Is Honorable Gertrude Mbeyu in the house? a request by Honorable Gertrude Mbeyu. She must have stepped out. There being no further interest or request to speak to the motion, I now call upon the mover to reply.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. This is a fundamental debate that directly involves us as members of Parliament. I am delighted because members have ventilated and put on record some of the sentiments which I do not doubt enrich the debate. The discussion we have held on this House will help guide those involved with NGCDF to, 1, properly utilize the fund's budget, 2, ensure transparency in the management of the NGCDF, 3, improve how audits are conducted, 4, standardization of the national government constituency development construction projects, and finally, improve the capacity of staff at the constituency development offices. I thank honorable members for unanimously supporting this report, and I beg that this House adopts the report of the Decentralized Funds Account Committee on the consideration of the report of the Auditor General on the financial statement for the National Government Constituency Development Fund for 26 constituencies in the counties of Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale, Taita Taveta, Lamu, and Tana River for the financial years 2013-2014, 2014-2015, 2015-2016, laid on the table of this House on Tuesday, 25th April 2023. With those remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to reply. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mover. Is Honorable Andrew Okwume on a point of order? You went away from your mic while requesting to to speak.
Yeah,
Please
Mr.
proceed.
Speaker, sorry. Mr. Speaker, sir, with reference to Standing Order 5.3, I wish to request that the question on this motion be deferred.
Which is the standing order provision quoted by Honorable Kuma? Yeah, 53. Yeah, Honorable Andrew Okwume, in line with standing order provisions number 53 of the House, I will defer the putting of the question on the motion to the next time it is scheduled in the order paper by the House Business Committee. Next order.
Order number 16, motion, ratification of the amended Nairobi Convention and the Protocol for the Protection of Marine and Coastal Environment of the Western Indian Ocean from land-based sources and activities.
Mover. Who should be the mover of that motion? The chair, Environment, Forestry and Mining, is not in the House. The Honorable Dorothy Kiara, what is the matter? Why isn't the mover in the House? We cannot have business of committees scheduled and duly notified on the order paper, and then we have movers grounding business of the House. Honorable Dorothy Kiaria, what is the issue? I see you on a point of order.
Honorable Speaker, I stand to be guided. I think, Honorable Speaker, There is no quorum in the House.
Whoa. Could you ring the bell for the time provided for in the standing order?
do what we used to do. We do communications or petitions. Then when stabadilisho ndio kitabadilisha, then when it's being done, kazi tunaenda kusoma hivi. Are you in the office? Are you following?
See what?
Now, look at what you send me and see what is being done. You can see kuna ideas za kueleza, na zingine
aliacha.
na zingine amedrop. You learn. It's not me. It's a cohort of masqueraders, vagabonds.
Order, honorable members. Honorable members, the time being 6:06 p.m. This House stands adjourned until Wednesday, 7th day of June 2013 at 2:30 p.m.
prayers.